Chapter 401, Arrive at Destination. Early the next morning, after the two got up and packed, Ryan asked Hermione to wait for him in the hotel lobby, and then he went out alone. A minute later, a small white off-road vehicle with double doors came to the door of the hotel. The glass shook down and Lane's face appeared in the buggy. "Okay, let's go." "Where did this car come from?" Hermione asked when she was wearing a seatbelt. "It looks so rough. I saw a used car shop over there on the way yesterday, so I spent $2,000 to buy the car just now." "Don't look at the roughness of this car, but the Russian Ladaniva is a good car." "Cars, especially this time we have to go through a lot of places with bad road conditions. If there is no off-road vehicle, it is not difficult to get past. At least it is better than walking on two legs," Ryan said, holding the steering wheel. "You can squint for a while," Lane said to Hermione. "There are about 300 kilometers from here to our destination. According to the information I bought from Nautical, the giants are now hiding in a valley in the Ural Mountains. We are now driving down the road drive north to Lower Tula, and from there to the west to Mount Woola." "Is your information accurate?" Hermione asked curiously. "In theory, shouldn't the places where the giants hide are a secret?" "Not exactly. We haven't heard of it just because many wizards don't care where they are, as long as they know they are far away. Their specific location is considered to be general information in Diagonally. I only spent 30 gallons, mixed this information with a dozen other information and brought it together." On the way to the outskirts, Ryan saw no one around, so he stopped the car and waved to open the space door to release two things. "Is this, we?" Hermione immediately saw what the two things that Ryan put in the back seat were. The two-person 11 puppets. They were extremely well made and could not be seen as dummies at all. "Yes, I will use them to make our proof of absence," Ryan briefly introduced. "This thing is very simple to do, because there is no need to think about the circuit and save a lot of things." "So how can they be made to look like us? Are you remotely controlled?" Hermione was a little curious about such unseen things. "Of course not." A young girl's voice sounded. Rose Crystal opened the space door and drilled out. "That's too complicated. In fact, let my elder brother's doll carry a bag and let me drill the remote control in the bag. Then I can take the opportunity to play around here." After finishing the Rose Crystal, he raised his hand. Something waved at them, and only then did Ryan find that the little doll was holding a guide map and a camera, which were all prepared in advance. It seems that after telling Rose Crystal more than a month ago, she was ready for this trip. After saying goodbye to Rose Crystal, watching the two puppets get out of the car, Ryan and the two of them used faceless tricks to change their appearance through makeup in the car. Before returning to Yekaterinburg, they will wear the local style Tatar and Russian faces act. When it was noon, the two men came to Xiatula bravely. This is a beautiful city. They were lucky and the weather was good along the way, so that they can get here smoothly along the road. After getting off the bus, Lane and Hermione came to a small restaurant together. As a Russian in winter, there is nothing to eat in this place, especially when the economy is not good, so the two people only need a large plate of Russian dumplings with beef filling. "By the way, I asked for another pot of beet soup." After sitting down and looking around, they found that the shop was small and the decoration was very simple. It should be that the houses facing the street opened directly with a sign. Fortunately, the cleaning is very clean, and the aunt who is the boss is also very enthusiastic. "How come you young people from this field come here in this weather?" the aunt asked after she put on the dumplings. "Compared to ours, this place can be regarded as warm." Ryan pretended that he and Hermione were high school couples traveling from Yakutsk. "We have already had a winter holiday there, so I took the opportunity to take a look at the Great Ural Mountains recorded in this book." Fortunately, Russia also belongs to the yellow race and the white race, so Ryan said himself the aunt from the Far East naturally believed Yakutsk. "No wonder." The aunt showed a clear expression. "My son went to Yakutsk for a business trip this winter last year, but he told me that it was already over 20 degrees below zero, and he didn't even dare to go out when there was no car." "Yeah," Lane agreed. "So we ran out to play, and we went to the mountains in the past 2 days, and then to Yekaterinburg." "By the way, where is the nearby mountain more suitable for playing?" "Ah, a place suitable for young couples to play," Aunt Size said after turning around Ryan and Hermione's face. "You can follow the road to the west and walk a little into the mountains. There will be a lake. It will look beautiful after freezing in winter. From that lake, it will be a walkway to the south. Now when the snow is not very thick, you can turn around. There are even a few cabins inside where you can spend the night. But remember to never go north." The aunt warmly introduced the surrounding scenery, but the whole complexion of not allowing north went serious. Len recalled the data at hand and found that the group of giants was in a valley more than 30 kilometers north of the lake. "So I asked my aunt, why can't you go north? It used to be no different from other places, but I didn't know what happened more than a decade ago. There was no way for everyone to pass there, and all the people who died in the past eventually died. Someone told us that the geology has changed drastically. The people have encountered mountaineering accidents. When we went to the lake to play a few months ago, we heard a loud noise from the north. So you two should never pass." Aunt warned seriously. "In this case we must not pass," Ryan said. "We will go to the lake to play and come back in 2 or 3 days." After paying in US dollars, Ryan and Hermione left the hotel. After sitting back in the car, Hermione asked, Are you just asking the store owner where the giants are? Yes. Ryan started the car. Combining their news and what I know, I can now confirm that the giants are still there. We used to be able to block them. The road in the mountains is difficult to walk, especially now when the water is dripping into ice. In some places Ryan and Hermione had to use magic to help the car get out of trouble. Of course, in order to minimize the possibility of exposure, they chose magic from other worlds. For example, manipulating shadow pads under the wheels to get the car out of the pit. Fortunately, because there are many people walking on this road, the road conditions are good. So it took just over an hour to get to the lake. The car can only be driven here, and then it's time to walk forward. Let's go. Lane put the off-road vehicle into the world of radiation, and then entered the forest by the lake with Hermione and stepped into the forest. The snow is moving north. Fortunately, the snow has not been heavy recently, and the snow in the forest is only 10 centimeters thick. Along with the crunching sound of stepping on the snow, the two men walked forward in the still woods with their cane in one hand and a wand in one hand. Neither of the two said a few words in this section of the road, only to see the white fog rising from their mouths and noses. Okay, we're almost there. It was already night, and the sky was completely dark. The air in the Ural Mountains without industrial pollution is very fresh. Looking up through the gaps between the branches, you can see the beautiful Milky Way and the stars in the sky. www.mplnovel.com. There is still silence around, only the sound of the wind blowing the treetops and the accumulation of the trees, the sound of snow falling. At this moment, Ryan stopped and said, "Are you here?" Hermione said, holding her cane and gasping gently. Even if she hadn't put down her exercise and strengthened her body in the past few years, but the 10-hour snow trek also made Hermione feel that she felt very fatigued, especially when she took only 3 or 4 breaks during the 10 hours, which was not enough for an hour. "Yes, I think there are traces of magic near this place. It should be coming soon." Ryan nodded, and Hermione saw Ryan summoned Xioking out. Xioking quickly turned into a pile of active radan and scattered into the surrounding forest. I asked Xioking to investigate first. Harry and Hagrid told them that the Death Eaters sent by the mysterious man were also in the giant horde. I didn't want to fall into the trap and be beaten by them. 3 Death Eaters, not 2. Ryan closed his eyes and attached to Xioking, and slowly opened his eyes after investigating the surroundings. "What?" Hermione looked at Ryan. Hagrid said before that he saw 2 Death Eaters coming to the giant horde, but there were actually 3 Death Eaters coming here. One of them was separated from the other 2, and it was always hidden in the dark. "Free hand," Ryan explained. "Okay, let's go." Xioking has just detected a safer road just now. Finally, under the leadership of Xioking, the two climbed the last ridge along a winding route. Chapter 402, Start of Action. Ryan and Hermione climbed to the top of the mountain along the route they had previously investigated and looked down the mountain. The scene in front of them proved that they had arrived. This is a mountain basin surrounded by mountains. The area of the basin is not small. There is even a small alpine lake in the basin that can provide water. There are a few bonfires under the mountain, which are about the same size as the normal Boy Scout camping, but compared with the shadows of 6 or 7 meters high and small hills around them, these campfires are much smaller. They are giants. Ryan and Hermione were lying in a small pit at the top of the mountain at that time, wearing a camouflage net and holding a low-light night vision telescope to look down. "It's so ugly." Ryan agreed with Hermione that these giants looked heavier than elephants and had rough skin like rhinoceros. Their heads are like a round ball, covered with curled, thick and dirty hair. The facial features seem to be chiseled roughly on a large stone ball. The stubby nose is almost non-shaped, the mouth is skewed, and it is covered with half-brick-shaped strange yellow teeth. The eyes are turbid brown-green, which is very small by giant standards. Their ugly heads grew directly on their shoulders, and there was almost no neck between them. Ryan yelled at him after carefully observing the giant's camp. "What happened?" Hermione turned her head to look at Ryan, who was lying beside her. He found that Ryan's face was very ugly now, as if he was suppressing huge anger in his heart. "Look at them in the pot," Ryan said in a low voice. Hermione aimed at the cauldron placed on a campfire with a telescope and gave a dejected exclamation after a careful look. "Because it was a human hand that was turned over by a wooden stick." Hagrid never said this. "No one ever told me that giants also eat people." Hermione looked at Ryan in shock. In the past, there might only occasionally eat some muzz that ran into the valley by mistake, but it seems that after the arrival of the Death Eaters, these giants are more evil than in the past, and they should have forgotten the painful lessons they gave them last time. "Wake up the evil power inside," Lane said, pointing to a small cave on the other side of the cliff. "I feel there are at least 20 people in it, but only 2 magical reactions. It is likely that the Muzz who the Death Eaters don't know where to grab after those." The giants aroused their bloodthirsty character. Those Death Eaters wouldn't think of the giants as their allies. In their eyes, the giants are just dirty monsters. Allying with them just hopes to use their fighting power to give us add trouble. In this case, they will use various methods to make the giant more brutal and barbarous. After the 2 men moved to the other side of the valley facing the cave, they confirmed their inference through the telescope. McNeil in black robe was holding the wand and sitting at the entrance of the cave. From the cave, he could vaguely see the inside of the cave. Some iron cages are empty and some are closed. Those in cages judged from their clothes that they should be some moles. What should we do? Hermione asked. There are too many people in the other party. But we only have 2 people. Drink this first. Ryan took out a bottle of bright red potion. Don't want to sleep tonight. We now need to figure out the trajectory of these guys' actions and then formulate an action plan. After 2 hours of observation, they finally found a weakness in the other party. That is, the third Death Eater on the periphery has very little contact with other people. If you knock it out first, you will not worry about others discovering it for at least a day or 2. The hidden Death Eater looked very cautious. He hollowed out a trunk of a large tree surrounded by several people several meters above the ground and hid it. The digged wood was treated with a disappearing spell, and finally put the bark back into place. In this way, no one can find people hiding in the tree in a short time. At the same time, it can be seen from the small hole in the tree bark just above the cave where the 2 Death Eaters are staying. Around the tree, the Death Eater also installed a lot of defensive magic and surveillance magic, which completely transformed the area into a very good fortification. Ryan was able to find this guy because such a tree was very abrupt under the perception of natural magic. It's like a bright light in the night. And the reason that the Death Eater left such a big loophole is naturally because there have been no wizards who have mastered natural magic in Britain for hundreds of years. Of course, this aspect will not be considered. You stay here to monitor the movements of the giants below. If you have anything to notify me with your ring, I'll go and deal with the Death Eater hidden in the dark first. Ryan crawled out directly after explaining Hermione the observation point didn't stand up until the back of the tree and climbed up and left. Good luck, Hermione said after watching Ryan leave in a voice that only he could hear, then raised her telescope and continued to stare at the giants below and the cave opposite. Ryan jumped fast on the branches in the forest until he stopped 10 meters away from the tree where the Death Eater was hidden, because he felt magic defense around. Let me see. Ryan took out a purple crystal ball and made a few gestures towards it. The crystal ball quickly showed many runes. Securely guard, protect all, and drop enemy traps. Does it seem that this Death Eater's magic is also routine? What is this? Ryan suddenly discovered that the crystal ball showed a magic he did not know before. Soul, perception, shockwave. Any intelligent creature will get a shock on the soul when approaching. This magic is quite new. It seems that the guy hiding in the tree is an attack wizard who is good at the soul. Lane thought from the space bag. Take out a few spells for soul defense to bless yourself. Then began to crack around the defense and magic. Each time a magic is done, the rune representing that magic on the crystal ball will disappear until the last rune disappeared. After 15 minutes, Ryan checked the equipment and jumped out. After coming to the tree where the man was hiding, Ryan touched the tree underneath and quietly communicated with the big tree, and soon he figured out the specific hiding place of the Death Eater. The guy is now leaning on the tree hole sitting on the wall, looking around through the small hole in the active bark. Relying on the tree, that's easy to handle. Ryan smiled after discovering this, and then pulled out the enemy fencing last time from the Lord of the Rings world and walked to the Death Eater leaning on the side above on a branch. Now do it. The Death Eater is also a human after all. Feeling the moment the guy in the tree's hole bowed his head to drink water. Ryan, who was originally standing on a branch with her eyes closed, opened her eyes violently, and then jumped off the branch with her head and feet. The wind blew across his ears, and the ground came, but Ryan's brain is still running at high speed and calmly. 1, 2, let's do it. After making 2 counts in his heart, Ryan, who had determined that he had arrived, slammed his sword into the trunk. www.novel.com. This magic sword forged by the elf was manipulated by Ryan. The bottom successfully penetrated 20 centimeters thick wood and a layer of magic defense directly from the other side of the wood and pierced into the neck of the Death Eater. Then the blade of the sword came directly from the guy's throat. The Death Eater was killed on the spot. After all, even if the wizard's vitality is stronger than Mull, but the neck bone and the nerves inside will be killed on the spot when all of them are cut off in an instant. Said that sooner or later, as soon as the sword stabs in, Ryan immediately let go and used his strength to flip a heel to adjust his posture in the air, and then steadily landed his feet and hit a roll to resolve the impact. Soon he stood up again, holding his wand and alertly aiming at the part of the tree where the enemy was. But the expected counterattack did not appear. After using life magic to sense that the person inside was indeed dead, Ryan directly eliminated the trap under the tree and retrieved his sword, then removed the bark. Amicos, Carlo. After picking up the chin of the body with the tip of the sword, Lane recognized the identity of the Death Eater killed by him. As one of the 10 jailbreaking Death Eaters, Ryan had seen his photos in the newspaper before. This can explain the reason why the surrounding defenses are very general, because this person was also known for his simple brain, but he was more capable of fighting and extremely cruel. It is very likely that he would not have arranged those complicated defenses. The first goal has been achieved, and the surrounding area has also been cleaned up. The next task is to deal with those core issues. Ryan thought about cleaning up his loot, and hurried to join Hermione. Chapter 403, Under the Sword. All beings are equal. How is it going? Hermione asked after watching Ryan return to the hiding place. Everything went well, killing Amako's Carlo. This should be the best one of the 3 Death Eaters. Ryan whispered briefly about his actions, and then asked, "What do you have?" "Did the new discovery?" The 2 Death Eaters hiding in the cave have been identified. One is Alex Carlo, the sister of the Death Eater you just killed. The other is Walton McNeil, magical. The executioner of the Animal Management and Control Committee is the guy who came to Hogwarts last time to cut off Buckbeak's head. They will change shifts at the entrance of the cave. Hermione seriously reported her observations. And these 2 men are extremely cruel. Ryan could hear Hermione's anger at this point. "I saw Alecto. Caro just used the heart drill curse on those Muzz for fun. This kind of Death Eaters are like this. Don't treat Muzz as humans. And what we have to do is to stop their atrocities." Ryan raised his binoculars and looked at the hunched figure sitting there opposite the hole. "This arrangement is a bit tricky, but it's not too bad. I'm ready. We will start at 4:30 in the morning, because I'm worried that more Muzz will be killed tomorrow morning." After finishing, Ryan took out a metal bottle the size of a thermos from the space bag, and it seemed to be filled with liquid. "What is this?" Hermione asked, looking at the bottle. "An extremely evil potion. I found it from an apocalyptic world. They called it Jet. The user will feel extremely excited after using this potion," Ryan said with a smile. "The bottle, the medicament, is the most primitive drug seized in the recent federal security search. It is more powerful but has more side effects." "Excited?" Hermione instantly understood what Ryan was going to do. She said in a worried tone, "But, will this hurt the innocent? Didn't Hage say they had persuaded several giants?" "No." Ryan looked at Hermione's slightly pale face. "The slightly gentle giants who have come to us are completely marginalized. I see a giant cave in the distance. There seem to be several giants. They are not allowed to get close to the fires and pots. One giant can only. There is a bite of moss on the rocks, so it won't hurt them by poisoning for a while." After hearing it, Hermione looked at the cave with a telescope. Sure enough, she saw several huge figures curled up inside from the night vision device. "What are all your plans?" Hermione asked with the telescope. "What am I going to do?" "I asked Xioking to put this potion into the giant's cauldron, and they will definitely go to dinner later because I found that these adult giants would keep eating as long as they had food. When the medicine worked, they became one. After the regiment I estimated that the 2 Death Eaters would come out to watch, and at that time we jumped directly from the cliff behind them to kill them." "Sounds like a good idea," Hermione whispered. "Hopefully everything will go well." After setting up the task, Xioking, under the control of Ryan, wrapped the medicine bottle and crawled over to the pot in the giant camp below. Ryan and Hermione moved towards the cliff above the cave. "Let's watch me gesture for us to act together. How about it?" After reaching the top of the cliff, Ryan asked in a low voice. "No problem." Hermione nodded gently. After that, he started to check the sleeve sword on his wrist. These sleeve swords were given to her by Ryan before, using mithril as the raw material, which combines several world alchemy skills, and can easily destroy the protection of the iron armor curse that the wizards have added to themselves in a hurry. Naturally, the cost of this kind of thing is also very high. It is impossible to mass produce. "Oh, yes, there is this to be applied to the sleeve sword," Lane said, taking out 2 glass bottles, which contained a strange blue fluorescent liquid. "What is this?" Hermione said, soaking the tips of the 2 sleeve swords in a glass bottle, watching the liquid being sucked in by the sleeve sword and turning the pattern on the sleeve sword into blue. "Is it poison?" "Yes." Ryan also poisoned his sleeved sword. "This is a poison produced by a famous research institution in the apocalyptic world using special organisms produced by nuclear radiation. Their chief scientist vowed to tell me that just a drop it can kill an elephant. I don't know the reaction of the wizards to this poison, so I try to increase the amount." After talking, Ryan took out 2 vials of blood-red medicine from his arms. "Drink this first. This is the antidote." Drinking the antidote, the 2 of them lie quietly on the cliff and wait. Not long after waiting, the valley below became chaotic. First, the giants who drank the broth shoved each other, then hit each other with wooden sticks and stones. These battles soon spread to the periphery, and more giants have joined the battle. The loud noise made by the giants during the battle alarmed Alex Carlo, who was standing on the platform at the entrance of the mountainside cave. According to Xioking's investigation, Alex Carlo quickly entered the cave at this time, and soon after Walton McNeil walked to the small platform protruding from the mountain and pointed at the giant below. Lane immediately nodded to Hermione, and then the 2 of them walked to the edge of the cliff together. Just below them was the platform where the 2 Death Eaters were. "Do it." Ryan jumped with Hermione. After making this shape, 4 sleeved swords popped out of the wrist at the same time. The 2 Death Eaters seemed to hear the wind, so they looked up in unison. It was found that the 2 people who jumped above were too late. www.mtlnovel.com. The magical defense that was subconsciously summoned by waving his wand was like a soap bubble pierced by the mithril sleeve sword on their wrist, and then the sword the 2 Death Eaters thrust into their necks almost simultaneously. 4 sleeved swords successfully cut off the cervical spine of the 2 Death Eaters, and at the same time the poison above quickly destroyed the brain and cardiovascular system of the 2 Death Eaters. When Ryan and Hermione landed on the platform at the same time, The two bodies collapsed like two full-faced pockets. "We have saved many innocent people again." After confirming the death of the two Death Eaters, Hermione looked at the innocent muzz caught in the cage in the cave and gave a satisfied smile. But this smile, the two corpses under her feet and the screams of giants in the valley below struck and killed a little. It feels like Hermione has been changed a bit more by herself. She is now completely different from the one in the original. Seeing this scene, Ryan suddenly thought of this. But at least Hermione didn't forget her original intention, or the kind-hearted girl. "Now I just understand what the real world looks like and how to change it." Thinking here, Ryan reached out and gently wiped out a few drops of blood that had just splashed on Hermione's face, and then whispered, "You'll go to rescue these victims now and arrange. I will go down and deal with the giants." Well, Hermione nodded and walked into the cave. Ryan jumped directly into the valley after releasing the slow descent spell. Chapter 404, Final Solution. Ryan chose to jump out of the valley at this time, not intending to rush into the giant crowd to open the unparalleled. As long as you have the brain to know that this time it is definitely not a good choice to blend into the giant crowd. After approaching the valley, he reached out and felt the wind. It is found that the wind direction of the valley where the giants are located is very fixed, and they are all blowing down the valley from the mountains in the distance. So he slowly moved around the edge of the giant, until he reached the entrance of the valley where the giant was. It should be okay here. After reaching out again to confirm that he was in the upper wind, Ryan found a place with a small dirt to block the sight of the giants below. Take a cauldron out of the space bag and add some water, then pour another bottle of jet into the cauldron and burn it in a kerosene stove under the pan. It didn't take long for the brown mist to rise from the pan, and Ryan quickly gave herself a bubble head curse to avoid inhaling the poisonous gas. These mists quickly submerged into the darkness during the dark night, and then drifted towards the giants that were being clumped together by the wind blowing from the other end of the valley. After inhaling these dangerous gases, the giants became more excited. In this case, the scale of the battle also becomes completely uncontrollable. The excited giants do not stop to a certain extent as before, but do their best to fight all the active guys around them to the last moment. Sure enough, some things should never be touched. If you touch a bit, you will be killed. Ryan probed and looked at the battlefield where blood flowed in the valley and sighed. Even these giants have lost their most basic biological instincts in the excitement. It is important to know that most animal creatures in the world can enable them to not fight with their dead hands when facing the same kind, but now, these giants have passed that dangerous boundary. Naturally, this is also related to the wildness and bloodthirsty that the Death Eaters inspired these giants. The fighting of the giants was so fierce that their roars and collisions even induced a small avalanche in the distant mountains. No wonder the local muzz think there are often dangerous geological changes here. A few hours later, the sun came out, and the battle ended as the last giant fell. After investigating and confirming that there were no intact giants in the valley, Ryan picked up his things and walked out of the hiding place, holding a hammer of Valyria steel in his hands. Just like Hagrid said, there are more than 70 giants here. Except for the marginalized moderate giants, the remaining nearly 70 giants have fallen into the valley, but perhaps because of their physical fitness is much higher than humans. Even if they are like that, half of them are giants, still alive. But the living giants also fell to the ground and exhausted, because under the action of drugs they just tried their best to fight, and those who were alive were also seriously injured or exhausted before they fell off. For example, Gugo Tall Horse lying down on a rock. Ryan watched last night that he had broken the skulls of at least 2 giants, but he also suffered a lot of injuries. Lane could even see his ugly grey giblets in the big wound in his abdomen. After seeing someone approaching, Tall Horse raised his black-haired head and opened his mouth to reveal black teeth, as if whispering something. But Ryan didn't know what the giant language was, and didn't want to understand it. He simply flew forward and waved his axe gun with both hands forward, and a huge head flew at the same time as the human bone necklace on his neck. Later, with the help of life magic, Ryan used the sword to clean up the giants who were identified and still alive. Fortunately, these giants have fallen to the ground and have no power to fight back, so they cleaned up and cut more than 30 axes. After cleaning all the giants outside, Ryan glanced at the direction of the gentle giants hiding in the corner of the cave. Then went into the cave where the giant Gug stayed. The cave where giants live in is very bad, like a pigsty that has not been cleaned in hundreds of years. Even with the help of the bubblehead charm, Ryan could feel a pungent smell coming. Bearing these disgusting smells, Ryan cast his eyes on the pile of things piled in the corner. The heads of giants are often brutal and brainless guys, and naturally they will not share them with others. The gifts from both Death Eaters and Dumbledore were now hoarding in the deepest part of the cave except for the helmet that was just removed from the tall horse. Gubili Fairy Fire, blood-dripping tomahawk, a large roll of real dragon skin. It seems that the cost of the 2 parties to draw the giant is not low. Lane whispered the loot. As an alchemist, he knew how valuable these things were. In addition, there are dozens of dog-head golds at the bottom of this pile of things. Even the smallest ones are bigger than 2 baseballs. The giants may have collected them from the surroundings, but there is no imaginary gem, or it would be too small for the giants to think of normal gems. After clearing the cave, Lane started to do the last thing, clean up the scene. He used fire to burn away all the remaining feed broth to destroy the evidence, and then took turns to open the space door to the world of radiation, the world of Rose Girl and the world of Song of Ice and Fire, and stuffed these giant corpses. They want to be very interested in this new biological sample. For example, Teacher Luo Zhen asked for 3 of the most complete in one breath, while the other 2 worlds divided the other corpses equally. In the end, the whole ground was left with bright red blood frozen into ice cubes and a piece of broken meat and bones. After finally confirming that everything was taken away, Lane climbed back to the previous cave with a hook, and Hermione was already waiting for him there. Those survivors are settled? Ryan asked Hermione, who was sitting cross-legged on a felt, drinking black tea and eating refreshments. Yes. Hermione reached out and motioned for Ryan to sit opposite her and eat together, while saying, I changed a large sleigh and dragged them 2 kilometers away with a shadow, and then one of them made a coma spell. It is estimated that sunset today they can wake up when they are. Their clothes are very thick, don't worry about frostbite. There are no big beasts because of the giants. In addition, I have left a lot of food and water for them and one for you. My signal gun. That's good, Ryan said, using magic to clean his hands, picked up a snack and ate it. After a busy night, he was hungry indeed. Will the remaining giants not be drawn by Death Eaters anymore? Hermione took a sip of black tea and said www.mtnovel.com. I can be sure not. Ryan also picked up the black tea. Just after I checked carefully, there were only 6 living giants left, all old and weak women and children, and should no longer be attracted by the mysterious people. It's that simple. Then why was Hagrid so difficult to negotiate with the giants when he told Harry their experience? Hermione put her teacup down and looked at Ryan. On the one hand, they were harassed by Death Eaters from the beginning, and we got rid of the interference of all Death Eaters as soon as they came. On the other hand, as Hagrid said, the Giant's idea is relatively simple, so simple persuasion won't do much. And when I kill 90% of their members, their simple brains will soon understand that cooperating with Death Eaters is a dead end, and will keep this in mind forever. Ryan Minutes explained, and then raised his teacup to signal to Hermione. Our operation successfully prevented the evil actions of these evil creatures and eliminated the possibility of them doing evil in the future. It can be said that they have completely achieved the expected goal. As our first independent operation, such results are really worth congratulations. Hermione also had a smile on her face and raised her teacup to gently touch Ryan. Yeah, we saved a lot of lives and punished evil, which is indeed a matter of celebration. After some repairs, Ryan stood up and threw the bodies of the 3 Death Eaters into the previous 3 worlds like the bodies of the previous giants. He then returned to the lake at the departure point with Hermione. Chapter 405, Christmas Eve. Oh, by the way, it will be Christmas the day after tomorrow. I'm sorry to have brought you here at this time. On the way back, the 2 people seemed very relaxed. At this time, Ryan thought of an apology. Hogwarts Christmas holiday begins 5 days before the holiday, which also means that tomorrow night is Christmas Eve. It's not a pleasant thing to be in the wilderness at this time. It's okay. Hermione smiled. I think the righteous cause we do is the best Christmas gift. In this relaxed situation, it took the 2 people more than 8 hours to rush back to the lake where they started off, and then Ryan drove off-road vehicle and returned to Lower Tula. Like the last time, we asked for a large plate of beef dumplings and a hot pot of borscht. After dark, Ryan and they returned to the previous small hotel for dinner. How does it feel to travel in the Ural Mountains? The aunt asked while dropping dumplings. Okay, the sky is beautiful. Especially the frozen lake reflects the sky and the sound of the wind blowing through the woods is really beautiful. It is a bit boring to watch for a long time so we came out. We are going to Yukaji overnight Fort Lina. Yes, the wild scenery is like that. The aunt neatly stirred the soup pot on the other gas stove with a spoon. You're in luck. The north side was in trouble today. More than 20 people traveling into the mountain encountered an avalanche. They were rescued by helicopter before you returned. Lene and Hermione glanced at each other, and it seemed that the survivors were now safe, and there were also personnel from the Ministry of Magic involved in the matter. Fortunately, the 2 people did some disguise and did not see the faces of the survivors, so they have not been found for the time being. After a full meal, the 2 set foot on their way home. At 9 o'clock in the evening, I arrived at the meeting point with Rose Crystal and successfully changed my identity back. You're doing pretty good shopping today, Ryan quipped after listening to Rose Crystal's report on her all-day trip. This whole day, Rose Crystal first went to the Eurasian boundary marker on the west side of the city, then turned around in the city, and finally visited the Shavastianov Palace. However, the most famous attraction in the future, the Church of the Spilled Blood, was established in 2003, and it does not yet exist. But it's not exciting for you to kill the giants. As soon as I mentioned here, Rose Crystal was knocked on the head by Ryan. What is the excitement of killing giants? We clearly went to defend justice and rescue innocent people, and even Christmas can't go home. Yes, I just forgot. Rose Crystal made a cute squat with her head hugged. We are justice, and giants are naturally evil. To kill them is to maintain justice. After laughing for a while, they drove back to the hotel where they used to stay. After eating early the next morning, Ryan and Hermione boarded a plane to Moscow. "Where are we going next?" Hermione asked curiously. "Do you have any travel plans?" "Sorry, I just made an excuse at the time and didn't pay attention to the arrangement at all. And the Christmas of the Russians was in January, so now there is no lively Britain." Ryan they had already got off the plane and sat in the city, in the car. It was only at this time that Ryan discovered that he had planned to return to the UK directly after solving the giant problem. He had never considered what he should do when he came with his girlfriend, but it was a bit unreasonable to travel to Russia once and for a long time without going around. Ryan quickly thought of a good idea. "But I have an idea. Before I booked a 5-star hotel in Moscow, I would definitely arrange a guide service in the hotel." After arriving at the hotel, they checked in as soon as possible and then went straight into the telephone room beside the lobby to start making international calls. The phone call was to the Heavenly Dynasty, and they took this opportunity to make international long-distance calls with their parents to wish each other a happy Christmas. After chatting for a while, they reluctantly ended the call and returned to the front desk. As the oldest 5-star hotel in Russia, the President Hotel Moscow by the Moscow River really has English-speaking tour guide service. Soon Ryan hired a middle-aged 40-year-old male tour guide after putting away his luggage. Take them to see a few attractions in Moscow: Red Square, Kremlin, Moscow River. On this day, Ryan and Hermione made a good round in Moscow, and also left a lot of happy memories. They did not return to the hotel happily until dark. After returning to the hotel, they found that as a foreign hotel, the President Hotel Moscow prepared a very good Christmas banquet in the restaurant for guests from afar. Oysters, roasted turkey, Christmas pudding, lobster, foie gras. The Christmas banquet in this shop looks really rich. The Christmas meal in the hotel is buffet style, and Hermione filled herself with a large plate. Come to the table and talk. After a long period of exercise and physical strengthening, Hermione's meal is close to an adult meal, but she was very open to this situation. When she was eating oysters, she said, "What's the problem with having a bigger appetite and enjoying more food, especially when you don't eat fat?" Ryan naturally agrees with this too. Now how much bitter life he has suffered in order to lose weight is now full of tears. It is indeed a good thing to be able to enjoy good food without becoming fat, especially for people who love beauty. This physique is like a gift from heaven. After enjoying a sumptuous dinner, the two returned to their rooms. Maybe it was because it was snowing outside, so even if the room was very warm, the two people felt a little chill, so they soon put on their pajamas and covered the quilt after washing, and sat on their beds against the back of the bed. At first they watched TV for a while, but unfortunately there was nothing to watch. Soon they turned off the TV and took out a book from the pocket. Soon they were attracted by the content of the book, and the room began to become very quiet, only to hear the sound of the wind from the central air conditioning outlet. 2 hours later, Hermione closed the new Principles of Digital Divination and looked at the other bed. She saw Ryan carefully flipping through a large book that seemed to be made of leaves. Looked at Ryan's profile in the warm light. "You reading www.uukanzu.com." Hermione suddenly felt that her heart was starting to beat a little. "What's the matter?" It took more than 10 minutes for Ryan to read this introduction to the enchantments of the elves' forged weapons. When he closed the page, he saw Hermione staring back at him blankly. "Ah, no. It's nothing." Hermione only recovered at this time. She felt that she had a fever on her face. Fortunately, the lights in the bedroom were not very bright. Ryan should not see that she was wrong. Thinking of here, Hermione quickly made an excuse. "I'm thinking about how everyone in the UK has a holiday. They should be doing well. At least they can stay away from Umbridge's toad," Lane said, looking sideways at Hermione. "By the way, when you mentioned friends, I suddenly remembered something." Speaking of this, Ryan stretched out the ring-shaped hand from the quilt, and the two people flashed light at the same time. "This is a secret magic I released on us before, mainly used to interfere with some creatures that will track. After all, this time we are considered to sneak in secret, in case someone writes a letter to let the owl come over and be discovered by the enemy too are miserable. Fortunately, you just said that I remembered it, or tomorrow we won't even receive a gift. So, Merry Christmas." "Good night." "You are the same. Good night." After saying good night to each other, the two looked at each other quietly sideways, with smiles on their faces. Due to the fatigue of running for several days in a row, within a few minutes, the two of them went into sleep with their eyelids fighting. Chapter 406, Gift. Early the next morning, Ryan woke up very early. When he opened his eyes, he just saw Hermione opened his eyes and looked at him. "Good morning, Merry Christmas." After greeting each other, the two men got up and washed. Of course, both sides put their presents in the pile of gifts on the other side of the bed while the other side was washing. Here is to praise the owls of the wizarding world, even if they closed the doors and windows when they slept yesterday. But these gifts still appeared on their bedside early this morning. This magical situation can only be explained by magic. Hermione's Christmas present to Lane this time was an old-looking men's necklace, just like the ancient nobles hung out of their dresses. Ryan took a closer look and found that there was a rune on the necklace that made the brain clear. It is a pity that this enchantment failed in the passage of time. However, from the extent of the loss of magic power, this necklace can be judged to have a history of nearly 1,000 years. After turning over the biggest red spine of the necklace, Ryan finally found the source of the necklace. The gold plate of the gem was engraved with Richard I. This inscription is the meaning of Richard I. If the necklace year is taken into account, then the identity of its owner is ready. One of the most famous kings in Britain, Richard the Lionheart, nearly 1,000 years ago. Thank you. Ryan thanked Hermione by holding the necklace. This is really a very precious gift. Especially the alchemy rune above has even failed, but it still has a high reference value. Just like it. I found it from the pile of debris in the request room. It took a lot of experience to clean and repair it after it was deformed when it was taken out. Hermione's sighed. He opened the gift that Ryan gave him. Soon she opened the gift box that Ryan gave her and took out a baseball-sized crystal bottle filled with golden liquid. This is Hermione carefully looked at the bottle in her hand. Blondie? But this bottle of medicine is not so bright. But this is not like a magical agent. After all, it is not so transparent and sticky. Not as high as this. Looking at the distressed Hermione, Ryan revealed the answer. You don't have to guess. This potion is not outside. It is a potion that I invented myself. It was made from the blood of the Rayum cow seized last time from the vampire. Yes, after drinking, you can maximize the permanent strength of the drinker. The only flaw is that you can only drink once, and the effect cannot be accumulated. Rayum cow blood? I have seen a brief introduction about this kind of animal in Where is the Magical Animal. Their blood is extremely popular, and as far as I know, it is expensive and not always expensive. There is no market for the old vampire family. This kind of thing is not impossible. Ryan continued to unpack all the packages containing gifts. I suggest that you drink this bottle of medicine as soon as possible. This kind of thing is only available if you drink it. Significance. Hermione pulled out the stopper, and then looked up and drank all the medicine in the bottle. I just felt a little warm at my fingertips. After drinking the potion, Hermione sat on the sofa for a while, but didn't feel the strange feelings she had imagined. I thought it was the same as in the movie comics. After drinking it, I would have pain all over the body and struggle desperately, and then my body would change immediately. Do you think this is Captain America's super soldier body modification potion? Ryan cried a little. Even if we are wizards, we must talk about the basic principles. If we don't want too strong side effects, then this kind of change can't be completed in a short time. And you just said that. Just open the bottle. Drink. Isn't it believed you won't hurt me? Hermione raised her eyebrows naughtily. By the way, how did Harry feel that their gifts this year seem to come from a wholesale place? And why are they all the Duke of Honey's Christmas candy gift packages? Lion waved. I think they might have something. It was at this time that Ryan remembered that the original text was about to go on holiday before Christmas. Harry was in sleep with the Voldemort soul film on Nagini. I also saw the scene where the big snake bit Mr. Weasley. It's no wonder that he hadn't seen Harry when they left by train from the school. They should have gone to 12 Grimmauld Place by then. Originally he remembered this matter, but recently he was busy dealing with the Giant's affairs and suddenly ignored this. And because of Ryan's relationship, Hermione's relationship with Harry is not as close as the original text. For Dumbledore, Hermione and Ryan are now more like members of the Phoenix Society after he was called. So Dumbledore did not inform Hermione about the incident as the original text. Although I don't know why the members of the Weasley family who had a better relationship with them didn't tell them about it. It's now clear how this happened and it's not appropriate to ignore it afterwards. We simply wrote a letter asking them what happened. After all, they are our friends. This proposal was approved by Hermione, because she was also a little worried about the more agreeable Ginny and Percy who talked to her usually. What bad things they encountered. After writing the envelopes for the twins and Ginny and putting them in an envelope, the two came to the open-air garden on the roof of the hotel. Looking at the open-air swimming pool with dry water and the empty flower pots, Lane knows that it should be very popular in summer. But now it is winter, and there is no one here. Okay, now I'll summon the owl. Ryan pulled out his wand and quickly knocked 3 times on the wall next to it. After stopping for a few seconds, he quickly knocked 3 times. This is the method Percy told me. He said that you can use this method to summon owls in the wild on the European side, but the owls summoned in this way need to add money. Sure enough, soon after Ryan put away his wand, there was a sound of flapping wings in the distance. Then 7 or 8 fat chickens looking round and round. Ah no, owls squeezed into a pile on the railing of this open-air garden. I need to send 2 long-distance mails to the UK. This is an international mail, and I need to fly very far, Ryan said, waving out the 2 letters. Who can help me with this? The voice just fell. A large owl about the size of Hermione's Hermes squeezed out of the owls. It was also an eagle owl. The most striking thing was the hanging on its left leg. A small leather bag, written with gold-plated Russian letters on it. Cuckoo Owl Post Office, safe, fast and accurate. Let me think. By the way, Percy said that next is to take a handful of coins and put it in front of the owl. Ryan muttered and took out a handful of nat from his pocket. The owl moved in front of him and used it to tap these copper coins gently. 12 nates. Not expensive. Counting the coins the owl knocked, Ryan put 12 nates in the pocket on the owl's feet. After receiving the money, The owl raised his other foot and let Ryan hang the letter and flew away. It's troublesome. Why don't the wizards use stamps? Hermione chuckled beside him. So what are we doing now? This kind of international mail is estimated to be delivered in one day. Let us just go to the Pushkin National Museum of Fine Arts and Nick Allen Circus today. www.mtlnovel.com. We can't wait in the hotel. It is estimated that we will wait for our evening. The letter will arrive when I return. On this day, the two of them happily walked around, and when they returned to dinner at night, the twins and Ginny's reply arrived. Sure enough, their father was seriously injured by a snake attack. But the difference from the original is that Mr. Weasley was only seriously injured by the snake venom after his arm was bitten, and the injury was lighter than the original. At the same time, the twins also explained the reason why they did not write to them. Mrs. Weasley felt that since Mr. Weasley was not in danger of life, she should not implicate her friends and even have a bad Christmas. Tell a friend about this. So until Ryan asked them a few talents to tell them the truth. Really? Ryan shook his head gently, and once again felt that the Weasleys were all good people. Since visiting like this is necessary. Anyway, the mission to Russia this time has been completed, and there is nothing important left. The only regret is that the trip time with Hermione was shorter this time. Still looking for The Harry Potter Shopkeeper, free novel. Baidu direct search. Reading novels is easy. Chapter 407, Return to London. Hermione also felt a little regretful about this trip, but she comforted Ryan that she had the opportunity to play together anyway. This comfort made Ryan feel more comfortable inside. Booked a flight ticket at the hotel reception desk and returned to the UK tomorrow. The two of them took a break early. At 12 noon the next day, they appeared tired at London Heathrow Airport. You can sleep on my shoulder for a while, Ryan said to Hermione after sitting on the subway to King's Cross. Hermione heard it, and naturally the whole person leaned over and leaned her head on Ryan's shoulder. They got up at more than 5 o'clock this morning. Because of the heavy snow in Moscow, they had to leave early to avoid getting stuck on the road and not catching the plane. The subway is quiet and runs smoothly. Hermione fell asleep quickly, until Ryan woke her up. Are we here? Hermione asked, rubbing his eyes. Yes, we're at King's Cross Station. We will take the subway directly to Sirius's ancestral home for a while. The Weasleys and Harry live there. Lane looked at Hermione a little confused, so she handed her a wipe. Wiped her face awake. After they walked up the stairs in front of the door of number 12 Mo Plaza, knocked on the door, and soon Mrs. Weasley opened the door for them. Oh dear, you should have fun in Russia. There is no need to rush back at this time. Arthur's injury is not fatal, and the therapist also said that a solution to the snake venom has been found. After speaking, Mrs. Weasley looked at Ryan. This time, thanks to the defensive bracelet you sold to the Order of the Phoenix, Arthur said that the defensive bracelet helped him block the deadliest first blow without letting that one. The snake bit his teeth on his chest. Thank you so much for saving him. This is what I should do. At the time, I made these things and sold them to work at this time. After hugging Mrs. Weasley, Lane said, can you show me the bracelet? I want to know how the python at that time broke the defense on the bracelet. You came here so far and worked directly without a break. It was. Mrs. Weasley looked a little embarrassed, but with Ryan's insistence she took the bracelet out of the cabinet in the living room. Unlike the copper bracelets previously sold in stores, the defensive functions of these bracelets for the Phoenix were strengthened. In order to achieve this, Lion chose to mix refined silver with a little demon refined silver to make silver wire, which was then twisted with Valeria steel wire and the made of these wires with a tired silk process. The runes are welded to the body of the silver bracelet. There are also a lot of purple crystals on top to power the defensive magic. The bracelet made in this way is not weak. Even if a 1-ton iron block falls from the 5-story building, it will not destroy the pop-up protective cover. Ryan couldn't figure out how the ordinary-sized snakes bit the defense. But when Mrs. Weasley handed over the bracelet wrapped in handkerchief, the problem became more complicated. Opening the handkerchief, Ryan saw the entire silver bracelet darkened, and the transparent crystal before it became turbid. The pure physical defense is destroyed. Theoretically speaking, the bracelet will not become like this. There must be something he does not know. It was like this when I took this bracelet off from Arthur, Mrs. Weasley said. When Ryan checked the bracelet, and Arthur told me that when the protective barrier broke, he felt that the bracelet was hot. Thank you, this news is very useful to me. After that, Ryan asked Mrs. Weasley, is the laboratory I got here before the summer vacation still there? Of course. Mrs. Weasley nodded. Since no one knows exactly what you put there, what Sirius is doing is to block the house with magic. I will ask him to block it. Open. Mrs. Weasley left in a hurry. You're tired from running around these days, so go rest and see you at dinner. Looking at the back of Mrs. Weasley, Lane leaned over and said to Hermione. Hermione yawned, a tired look on her face. Okay, I'm going back to the room upstairs now and go to bed. Don't make yourself too tired. See you in the afternoon. She finished walking upstairs with her luggage. Ryan walked to the alchemy laboratory transformed into a previously underground food storage room. Say hello to Sirius at the door of the laboratory, and Ryan drills directly into the laboratory. The blockade magic used by Sirius is very effective. It has been 3 or 4 months after the equipment has not even dusted at all. God of wisdom, let everything in front of you show the truth in front of you. Lane began to recite an alchemy mantra learned from the Hogwarts library in ancient Coptic. At the same time, with magic wands in the air were written ancient Egyptian holy book runes. Under the influence of magic, the bracelet on the table projected a ghost image upward. Then the ghost moved, and began to restore a little bit of how it was destroyed before. Ryan was shocked to find that the bracelet was severely overloaded at the moment when the protective cover was destroyed, and then it was completely burned. It seems that Nagini venom is not just a pure biochemical weapon, but it also contains powerful magical damage. The question now is whether it is the ability of the snake itself or was it generated after Voldemort put his soul piece on it? Ryan thought after looking at the results of the experiment. It is a pity that the snake like Nagini is estimated to be the only one in the world, so there is no information to support Ryan's conjecture. But Ryan also figured out why Snape gave up treatment after being bitten by Nagini in the original text. On the one hand, he did not have much awareness of survival at the time www.mtlnovel.com, and on the other hand it might be because of Snape after being bitten. Nagini injected a lot of venom. As a potion master, he immediately judged that the antidote on his hands could not remove the snake venom, and the current match was definitely too late. Otherwise, Snape, the master potion master, must have a lot of advanced antidote. In this case, if the venom is well resolved, Snape will not be sacrificed. But because of this matter, Ryan also found that he was still somewhat conservative in his previous design, so he began to design a new generation of more powerful protective props directly in front of the alchemy station. However, it is a very difficult challenge to integrate a stronger defense into a bracelet while suppressing the price to an appropriate level. Ryan devoted himself whole afternoon. It wasn't until the evening meal that Mrs. Weasley's knock on the door awakened from contemplation. Anyway, this thing can't be done overnight. Now let's eat first. Ryan thought of tidying up the things in front of him and turned left and walked toward the kitchen. At the kitchen door, several boys from Weasley's house ran to hug Ryan. Thanks to the defensive bracelet he made earlier for saving their father. Dinner was made with the cooperation of Mrs. Weasley and Greg, and it was very delicious. Especially the taste of home in the prepared meal made Ryan and Herman, who had parents not around, touched a lot. In short, although Ryan was very tired from today's journey, this dinner made him feel all tired. Looking at everyone on the table talking and laughing, he thought this might be the power of the family. Chapter 408, Prop Upgrade. For the rest of the Christmas holiday, Ryan has been living in the room where he stayed during the summer vacation before 12 Greenmore Square. During this time, he took a lot of time to rush to make some magic props for the Phoenix. By the way, invest a lot of energy to develop the next generation of upgraded magic defense bracelet. In the last week of the holiday, Ryan finally made the production of the upgraded bracelet. The main body was gold, which was inlaid with the wrong gold and silver craftsmanship into the mithril brought by the Lord of the Rings world and according to the Hogwarts secret library. In addition to the magic runes made by the technique in the imitation mountain copper mixed casting, there are also inlaid several pieces of cut red and blue spinels as magic nodes. When he came to the study on the second floor with the finished product, he heard Ron's voice. Why did you do the homework for Ryan but did not want to show us the paper? I know you are his girlfriend, but you look too much like this. Because Ryan is busy doing business, and he has mastered all this knowledge, but he is too busy to work for the Phoenix Society. There is no time to write it. Although I can't help him in the things he does, I can help him solve some of them. Worry about it. Hermione paused here. But your problem is that you haven't mastered this knowledge at all. Don't forget that we still have to take the OWL's exam this year. It is not possible to learn like the previous attitude. Hearing here, Ryan quickly pushed the door in to interrupt their argument, and then showed them his new product. While Ryan was introducing a new product, Sirius suddenly walked in with a happy face and shouted, "Good news, today we received a great news." "Ryan, why are you here?" Sirius froze after seeing Ryan, because in the past few days, except for the mealtime, Ryan almost stayed in the alchemy laboratory. So it is a bit surprised to see Ryan serious now. "My new defensive bracelet came out. Even if it was attacked by the snake again, it would win the chance for the user to withdraw his wand." After that, he took the gold bracelet out and handed it to Sirius. "Ah, that's great. When can I get one for everyone on duty?" "Don't worry, money is not a problem. I can afford it no matter how much I buy. Even if you need the materials I can help you got it." Sirius took the bracelet and looked at it. From the perspective of his pure-blood family, he quickly saw the extraordinary of this bracelet. Now it is not a question of cost and raw materials. The core is that the difficulty of manufacturing this upgraded bracelet has also reached a level. I can only make one even if I put it all in for a month. This is because you have the idea to do it before a blank is needed, so it can be processed into a finished product in just 1 week. Ryan explained to Sirius, who is now full of local tyrants, so that he could only restrain his Kryptonian impulse. "Oh, what is the good news you just said?" Because he didn't want to continue discussing this issue with Sirius, who is equivalent to illiteracy in alchemy, Ryan began to digress and ask Sirius what he had to say when he entered the door. "You don't remind me that I forgot. I was just a little excited when I saw your bracelet. Sirius said haha and said, today we have the exact news that the giant tribe that worried us before has completely disappeared, and at the same time 3 Death Eaters disappeared, and Voldemort angrily tortured a group of Death Eaters one by one with a heart drill spell at the meeting. Really? When did this happen? Ron and Harry immediately hugged and wrapped around Sirius and asked east and west. Hermione made a face at Ryan while the 3 of them were not paying attention. Disappear? What's going on? Harry's voice came over, revealing a deep confusion. After all, it's a giant. There are dozens of such big pieces, and they won't travel magically. With 3 Death Eaters, how could they disappear without anyone knowing it? But this is a fact. Sirius also showed confusion on his face. We have received information that the Russian Ministry of Magic first discovered a group of Muzz that had been rescued after being kidnapped by Death Eaters. Then, based on these clues, the previous giant's residence was found. But only 6 scared were found there. A half-dead giant. The only thing they would say is that they are all dead. Both are dead? Harry and Ron exclaimed, and Sirius nodded across the room. Yes, but the members of the Russian Ministry of Magic found nothing but bloodstains in the valley that had been frozen. Even after their inspection, they only found the defensive magic marks left by the 3 previous Death Eaters. There is no trace of magic other than that. You mean that if something attacks the giants and Death Eaters, the attackers can achieve their goal in a very short time without any magic? Or even 3 Death Eaters scattered in different places didn't have enough time to respond and issue a warning. Ron's eyes widened. God, this is terrible. If there is nothing wrong, this is the case. The Russian Ministry of Magic has now transferred the remaining 6 giants to other places. At least we don't have to worry about Voldemort pulling them in to cause us trouble. Sirius looked relaxed. Yeah. But don't you think this is weird? Hermione couldn't help asking. I think this kind of thing should not be common even in the magic world. It's really not common. Sirius nodded. But similar things haven't happened in the magical world. We now need to focus on Voldemort and his Death Eaters who don't pay much attention to this kind of thing that happened thousands of kilometers away and has little to do with us. Sounds good news. Ryan thought that at least this way there shouldn't be too many people paying attention to it, and he didn't have to worry about what he did before he was discovered. Yes, there is good news. Streetmonger has found an antidote to snake venom. Arthur will be discharged in 2 days. Sirius finally said. This is awesome, Ryan said to them together. Later, at the request of Ryan and Hermione, Sirius agreed to take them both to Streetmonger in the afternoon to visit Mr. Weasley. The weather in the afternoon is good. Under the rare winter sunshine www.mplnovel.com a group of 3 people appeared in front of an old red brick department store. We're here. It's St. Mungo. There is not enough land on Diagon Alley. It's unhygienic, built under the ground like the Ministry of Magic. Choosing here can make the sickness come and go among the crowd. Sirius looked at this with curiosity. Ryan and Hermione said, this department store called to Otago Limited looks decayed and deserted. There are only a few cracked dummies in the window, wearing wigs crookedly, with different postures, and wearing clothing at least 10 years ago. On the dusty doors, big signs of closing decoration are hanging. Ryan heard people whispering around. I swear I never opened the door. Sirius moved closer to the window and looked up at the ugly dummy. The breath he exhaled blurred the glass. Hello. I'll come to see Arthur Weasley. I saw the dummy slightly nodded and beckoned. The connected fingers, the 3 of them went straight through the glass and disappeared. Because it is now Christmas holiday, San Mungo has a festive atmosphere. There were not many patients in the waiting room. Ryan only saw a swollen head of tomato-like wizard and a witch with purple skin standing in front of the table marked Inquiry Office. Family disputes, eh? I suggest that you learn to hide your wand when you are arguing. I have seen you 4 times in the past 6 months. Now you 2 go to the 5th floor magic curse injury section. I really don't want to see you again, said the fat blonde middle-aged woman sitting behind the table. Does both husband and wife get along like this? It really looks scary, Ryan thought when he went upstairs. Chapter 409, Serious Love. Walked into Mr. Weasley's ward. Ryan saw him leaning on the bed to read one of the English editions of 100,000 Y. At that time, Ryan felt that this set of books on the Mole World science was definitely the most suitable for Mr. Weasley. Now it seems to be the case. He is so fascinated by reading the book that he did not even find Ryan. Arthur, how is the situation? Sirius asked. Very good, and the therapist's music said that the antidote I used this morning was very good. Just at noon, they checked that the snake venom in the body had disappeared, and I could be discharged in the afternoon. Ryan, Hermione, it's really troublesome for you to come over to see me during the 2 Christmas holidays. It's okay, you and your child helped us a lot before, and we should look at it. After that, Ryan took out the newly made bracelet and handed it over. This is my new product. Defense the force is several times higher than before. With this, you don't have to die like the last time. This person on duty can rotate the belt first, and I will make a few after a while. Thank you. It was heard that this was for the duty shifter. Mr. Weasley only reached out and took the bracelet. Thanks to you this time, I can successfully escape from the snake mouth. Not finished yet, a person came in outside. Mr. Weasley closed his mouth immediately. After all, These things about the Phoenix Society are not suitable for outsiders to know. Sorry a few of you, please let me go. After I have checked the wound, you can be discharged from the hospital. A middle-aged male therapist came from the outside, and from the badge he could see that this was Mr. Weasley. Therapist's Monsieur is gone. Mr. Weasley's inspection will take some time. In order to avoid the boredom of waiting, Sirius took Ryan and they went upstairs. Sirius said that there is a tea room on the top floor. It is now 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it is also time to drink afternoon tea. Is there a tea room here? Ryan followed Sirius blankly through the door-to-door in the corridor, and there was a moan from the patient. This is clearly a ward. I seem to have made a mistake, Sirius said after seeing the sign on the corner. This is the 5th floor, we have one less floor. San Mungo has 6 floors. Hermione and Lane looked at each other helplessly as they were about to find the stairs. Suddenly a door at the other end of the corridor opened, and a middle-aged man rushed out with a vague yell in his mouth. Ryan stepped directly in front of Hermione, and then a grab technique pressed him against the wall. What's the matter? Sirius was also a little ignorant, but soon a mother-like middle-aged therapist wearing a garland of gold and silver garlands hurried over, with an anxious look on his face. Oh, Mr. Bode, why did you suddenly rush out? After she said, she looked at Sirius and said, You are Sirius, thank you so much for catching him, otherwise it would be troublesome to go somewhere else. This is what I should do. Sirius suddenly appeared gentle. Later, with Ryan, he grabbed the patient and followed the therapist. Would you please go here? He lives in a closed ward, and he must have slipped out while I was taking the medicine in. The door is usually locked. He is not dangerous. He just cannot control himself occasionally. She lowered her voice and said, Of course, thank you guys for helping me. He can't pull it back in the corridor without magic. The therapist walked to the door of the ward and opened the door with an unlocking spell, then pressed the patient on a chair. This is our long-stay ward, and the patients have been permanently injured by magic spells. Of course, relying on intensive treatment and a little luck can improve the condition. For example, Mr. Bode has made great progress recently, and his speech ability has recovered well. Although we don't understand what he said, but he is the most likely to heal in this ward. Soon, Sirius was chatting hot with the therapist, not to mention going upstairs to drink tea. The boring Hermione and Lane could only look around this ward. It is obviously the home where the patient lives long. There are more personal items around the bed than Mr. Weasley. Ryan focused his attention on an unsightly plant with long tentacles on the patient's bedside table. What is this stuff? Do the wizards like such an ugly plant as a decoration? Ryan nudged Hermione's arm with a finger gently to show her the pot of plants. Crabclaw orchid. But crabclaw orchid should be greener than this. Hermione, who was bored, approached the flower pot and looked at it. It may also be the devil's net. The book says that the devil's net may sometimes be disguised as other plants, but this is very easy to verify. Said that Hermione took a bright light flashlight from the space bag and shone on the plant. The tentacles on the plant soon began to retract, trying to avoid the light. It is certain that this is a young devil's net, which will not be entangled for the time being, but still hates the light. After speaking, Hermione shouted to Sirius, who was talking with the healer, Sirius, the wizard, do you like to put the devil net on your bedside as a decoration? After listening to Sirius, he turned around and said, Who are you listening to? Put the devil's net on the bedside. Isn't he afraid of the day when the devil's net hanged him in his sleep? Yes, but there is a pot of devil nets here, Hermione said and pointed the devil net at the head of the bed to Sirius. Isn't this cymbidium? The female therapist asked. I think someone sent it as a Christmas gift, so I put it on the nightstand. We tried it with strong light just now, so cymbidium will not avoid the light, Ryan replied. Sirius immediately stood up seriously, and then turned out a pot of plants near the head of the bed with his wand. Sure enough, the tentacles of this pot of plants on the bedside table avoided them after seeing the flames. Miss Straw, I think you need to inform the others in the hospital now. The devil's net should not appear on a patient's bedside table anyway. The serious face of Sirius opened his mouth slightly to his wide-eyed eyes, said the female therapist. Soon a group of therapists came to this ward, and it was Tryon that they should blend in www.mplnovel.com, but Sirius voluntarily left as a witness. Ryan and Hermione could only go downstairs alone. Find Mr. Weasley. Mr. Weasley, who has been approved to be discharged from the hospital, asked curiously after watching Ryan and Hermione return. Aren't you going upstairs for tea? Why is Sirius gone? He has something to do with himself. Ryan explained what just happened while helping Mr. Weasley pack up. So Sirius stayed upstairs temporarily for his love. He asked us to go back first. This is a good thing, Mr. Weasley said. Sirius is getting older too. I think he should be quiet now and find someone to get married and live with. Healed completely. Upon returning to 12 Grimmauld Place, Mr. V. Weasley announced the news to everyone loudly. At the same time, Sirius seemed to be in love with the news and spread it throughout the news building. Oh, Master is finally in love. I will definitely bring little Master into a real black. Clegg was the one with the strongest response after hearing this news. It seems that even if he is reconciled with Sirius, Sirius was not satisfied, so now he placed his hopes on the next generation of the Black family. After the sky was completely dark, Sirius came back from the outside. As soon as he entered the door, he was blocked by Mrs. Weasley and asked about today. "Well, you are right. I am in love because I think the therapist Milim is really a good woman, and the two of us are very suitable," Sirius said generously. Chapter 410, Christmas is over. "Oh, what a pity," Mrs. Weasley said with tears after Sirius told the story of the female therapist. The former female therapist was named Milim Straw, a daughter of a very small pureblood family. At Hogwarts, she was a Slytherin schoolgirl who was 2 years younger than Sirius. Upon graduation, he married the second son of another pureblood family. It is a pity that the pureblood family she married to was Voldemort's hardline supporter, and her husband often carried out domestic violence against her because she did not support Voldemort's pureblood theory. Later, after she was married for more than half a year, Voldemort fell. But her husband's family had a fierce battle with the Aurors who came to the manor to arrest them because of violent refusal. Only her mother-in-law survived and was sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. She wanted to go home, but her parents felt that she had lost the face of the pure-blooded family and expelled her from the family. In the end, she found a job in San Mungo with the help of Moody and her brother who led the team at that time, and then lived alone until now. Sirius may also be in love with the same disease because he is the victim of stupid pureblood thoughts in the pureblood family. This therapist has a weaker personality than Sirius, and the encounter is more pitiful. The young master was actually a pureblood, and he was finally willing to listen to his mother's words once, Clegg said with tears in his eyes, and was chased out by Sirius. But Ryan smiled when he saw the house elf going out. "Have you figured out that you are in love for marriage? Isn't it fun?" Mrs. Weasley said solemnly. "If you are for loneliness, such a poor woman should not bully her." "Of course not," Sirius said firmly. "I really like her. Even if she is a pureblood or Slytherin, I decided to marry her." Sirius was really a man who did what he said. From the next day he went to Street Mungo every day to find the therapist, and then came back with a smirk at night. Even if there are tasks, they will go to Street Mungo as soon as they are done. Love makes Sirius look a lot younger, and the whole person has been in a state of excitement. Even when Snape came to 12 Grimmauld Place on the last day of the holiday, he not only glared habitually, but also smiled at Snape. Of course, for Snape, the psychological blow he suffered was even greater than Sirius glaring at him. Snape came here to inform Harry that under the order of Principal Dumbledore, he would teach Harry occlusion at 6 p.m. every Monday. Dumbledore should not want your brain to be connected with a mysterious person again, which is not a good thing for you. What if his evil affects you? He is the most evil black in half a century wizard, Ryan said after listening to Harry's description at the last dinner of the holiday. "Isn't it?" said Ron with vague muscles in his mouth. "I think it's more dangerous to make up with Snape. It's better to lose your life than to hate it." Hermione offered her opinion. "Don't forget that this connection may be two-way. No matter how evil the mysterious man is, we have to admit that his mana is now one of the best in the world. In this case, Harry is obviously in a weak position, even if these 2 times of the 2 brain connections are a bit cheap. But it is absolutely impossible to take them forever. Since this is what President Dumbledore wants, I will learn." Finally, Harry made his own decision. "Even if Snape and I want to kill each other." After having breakfast the next day, they took the night bus back to Hogwarts. Sirius seemed reluctant when they were about to leave, and he assured Harry that he would visit him in town the next Hogsmeade day. At the same time, he gave Harry a double-sided mirror for his usual contact. Lupin and Tonks were escorts, but there was no crisis along the way. They returned to Hogwarts Castle smoothly. The situation became very bad as soon as the school started, because Umbridge arranged a lot of papers to try to make every student unintentional to do other things, and even Lane thought that it might take all of the extra time to finish these things. Fortunately, when he went to the Wanji grocery store to write his homework in the evening, after knowing Ryan's distress, Rose Crystal was willing to help him complete the paper arranged by Umbridge. "It's really trouble you." Ryan touched the soft silver hair of the Rose Crystal, watching her manipulate 10 pens while starting to write, and then continuing the previous research on the power of the gods. "This is in the Lord of the Rings world in Ice, and the research project started after the Song of Fire world met the gods is also the most important research project of Ryan recently." In the rustle of the stroke of parchment, Ryan suddenly received a request from someone to enter the store. Naturally, Ryan, who has not opened for a long time, welcomes the guests. But as soon as the guest entered the door, Rose Crystal asked a strange question to the guest. "Legras, how did you become like this?" Ryan raised his head when he heard the words, and found that the other party did look like Legras, except that his ears were not so sharp, and he had a beard on his mouth and chin. At the same time, the body exudes an unpleasant smell of inferior perfume. "Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know the person you said." "My name is Wiltner. I was originally going home, but I don't know why I got here. I will leave immediately." Wiltner looked nervous. Even there are all kinds of mysterious legends in his world, but when the door opened, the blacksmith shop disappeared and turned into a place that he didn't know, which seemed unacceptable. "It's okay." Ryan signaled Will not to be nervous. He had recognized that the opposite was one of the protagonists from the Pirates of the Caribbean world. www.mplnovel.com. "We are a magic shop here. Only when we have something we want in our heart, we'll come here. So talk about it." What do you want now? Maybe I can do it for you. After that, he took a cup of hot cocoa and passed it. At first he was a little embarrassed, but thinking about the hopelessness in something and probably this magical shop is the last chance, he finally began to tell his story. In short, it is the story of the poor boy who fell in love with the aristocratic lady. At this time, Rose Crystal also finished writing a lot of papers, and commented on the story I just heard. This turned Will's face flushed. It's no embarrassment, love. Rose Crystal with a small face pretended to wave and waved, said, we have a way to narrow the identity gap between you and her, but the question is what exchange can you exchange? What about? Wiltner lowered his head, because he didn't know what was worth exchanging in his body, at least in the face of such a magical shopkeeper. His most valuable ant skills were worthless. Okay, don't tease him, Ryan said to Will at this time, there is really nothing in your body that deserves me, but I am very interested in the world you are in and want to do some business with your world. So as long as you are willing to serve me, then I will help you marry your sweetheart. Okay. After considering tens of seconds, Will decided directly, because he knew that this might be his only chance to marry Elizabeth. Chapter 411, Deal concluded. After Wiltner said it, he was paralyzed in a chair, and a lot of cold sweat came out of his forehead. Because cultural backgrounds are similar, Ryan probably can guess why Will is so nervous. Relax, I'm a wizard, but definitely not a devil. You don't need to do anything to betray my soul here. After he finished, he took out a golden contract and handed it over. Open your eyes and see. Seeing this is an employment contract, it is not evil at all. You are a bit overwhelmed. After accepting the contract, Wiltner found that the contract was really just an employment contract as Ryan said, but only asked him to act as Ryan's agent in his world to sell goods and collect all kinds of information, intelligence and article skills about extraordinary items. The only difference from the ordinary contract is that the above requires that as long as Will is still alive, he needs to keep fulfilling the content of this contract. Help the owner to sell the goods in the store, and at the same time help the owner to collect extraordinary items or extraordinary knowledge from his own world, Wiltner asked, raising his head. At least I have heard of extraordinary goods, but what kind of goods can you give me? My hometown is the most prosperous port on the Caribbean Sea. Your ordinary goods. After talking, he shut his mouth violently, as Ryan opened a space door revealing a large number of exquisite wooden tableware, white and delicate linen, delicate and strong steel products, piled up like a hill like canvas, and wine filled with spirits barrel. Your goods will be sold very well. These things are sold well in our place, Will painting style said. Then he directly picked up the feather pen on the table and signed his name on the contract. Aren't you worried that I won't be punished if I can't find any extraordinary items? Rose Crystal floated and said in an indifferent voice with a soul magic in her voice. As an ordinary person, Will naturally cannot resist telling the truth in his heart. You have so many supplies for me. I have enough money to buy enough sailors or pirates to get news for me. Besides, there are some not so practical and extraordinary items that can be bought by paying for it. Maybe a few barrels of spirits and a few sets of ceramic tableware can be exchanged. Very good, if you can peacefully start with extraordinary items is the best. Will's approach is more like Lane's appetite. Now let's go to your side. I have to buy a place to stay first. You're right. Will nodded. Such good goods can't be bought in a blacksmith's shop. At least there should be a big shop on the most prosperous street in Port Royal. At the 32-point offset point, the mysterious side of this world seems to be weak. Following Will, Lane brought Rose Crystal to what he said was the most prosperous port in the Caribbean, Royal Port. As soon as he crossed the space door, Ryan smelled the smell of ammonia, sea odor, and the odor of various fermentation. This made Ryan, who was more sensitive than ordinary people, feel a kind of suffocation. It was better after he hurriedly released a bubble curse. Of course, he didn't forget to add a bubble charm to Rose Crystal. Is this a landfill? After being stimulated by this smell, a word blurted out from the mouth of the puppet, embarrassing Will next. He could only pretend not to say to Ryan, where are you going now? I bought the land first, and then I thought about it. I can buy a piece of land directly at the beach, and then build my own dock and warehouse. Anyway, I think this city is not big, even if the shops are built to the dock. Ryan used the Green Prophet's ability to communicate that a seabird was spinning around the city a few times and made his decision. The wasteland is easy to handle. I remember that the land belongs to the ownerless. Just go to the governor's office to report it and spend a little gold. He left, as if looking for something or someone. This should be the time when Jack Sparrow escaped from the dock to hide around, Ryan thought, looking up just to see the sign of the blacksmith's shop. They had now come to the blacksmith's shop where Will worked. Don't you go back and tell you the master first. I think you may not be able to work in the blacksmith shop in the future. Lane thought of something much like a reminder. And I also want to see what the blacksmith shop looks like here. Is there a blacksmith shop for elves or dwarves? It is impossible to have those magical blacksmiths. Will returned to his world and relaxed a lot. He smiled and pushed open the door. Please come in. The taste is not very good. It's not only bad taste, rust smell, coke smell mixed with alcohol, making the air in the room very cloudy. Of course it is better than the compost pit outside. Will first appeased the circling donkey. Then he walked over to the anvil and found that the position of the hammer had changed, and there was a broken hat that he had never seen before. As he stretched his hand towards the broken hat, a sword rested on his hand. Lane turned his head when he heard the movement and found a pirate who looked crazy and put his sword on Will's neck. So he pulled out his wand and struck the sword in the pirate's hand with a disarming spell. "Nice to meet you, Captain Jack." After that, Ryan stopped Will's attempt to catch Jack. "Let him go. Isn't he a bad guy?" "Yes, but he is a pirate," Will said puzzled. "It's not that pirates are all bad guys." Captain Jack used to be the captain of a trading ship under the British East India Trading Company under the leadership of Lord Beckett. Once he was ordered to ship a batch of goods from Africa. As a result, he found on the road that the goods were actually they are African slaves. Jack released them out of a sense of justice. As a result, Lord Beckett was branded as a pirate before he became a pirate. Ryan explained. "Wait, who are you? I don't seem to know you, and I shouldn't know what I used to be at your age." Then a voice rang from the side, and they discovered that Jack hadn't left. The door was knocked just as Ryan was about to speak. "It should be the Navy searched. What to do?" Will looked at Ryan and said nervously. "It's easy to deal with. Don't forget that I'm a wizard," Ryan said as he released the magic spell on Jack. www.mplnovel.com. Jack disappeared immediately. "Keep quiet, the guys can't see you," Ryan told Jack. And indeed the Navy searched carefully and left with empty hands. "It's amazing," Jack exclaimed from the invisible state. "I've seen many things like magic before, but I've never seen it so convenient." "Brother and master's magic must be the most powerful," just said the rose crystal with puppets, and took Jack off. "Okay Jack, I know you want to recapture the Black Pearl. I have a hunch that the Black Pearl will soon be here, and the arrival of this ship will involve everyone." Lane learned Terry. Professor Lawney's usual style of speaking said that it was obvious that this coaxed Will and Jack. So after William bought a large piece of wasteland by the sea with gold, the three of them ran directly to the newly bought wasteland and set up a magical tent to have dinner inside, while exchanging their knowledge. Will's experience is the most boring, so he is only responsible for listening to Ryan and Jack tell their respective adventure stories at the whole party. And in the case where you have a story and I have wine, Ryan's relationship with the other two immediately became much closer, and even Ryan successfully borrowed the compass of Jack Sparrow and took it to watch. When the sky was completely dark, the other two dear ones were already sleeping because they drank too much, and Ryan, who had not drunk the wine, took the opportunity to analyze the compass that could point to the position of the heart, the principle, until a gunshot awakened him from his concentrated state. Black Pearl is here. Chapter 412, Nautical Travel. After Ryan and Rose Crystal woke the drunken Will and Jack, they hurried to the city. Unfortunately, when they arrived in the city, the Black Pearl had already left, and the city was in chaos. Damn, Elizabeth was taken away by the group of pirates. After returning to the blacksmith's shop, Will went to investigate the news, and soon found out a very bad news. "I'm going to take back my boat." "You're going to take back your sweetheart?" "Let's start an adventure," Jack said while watching Ryan chatting with Rose Crystal. "I think we need a boat first. Do you have any good solutions?" "Why don't we go to the Royal Navy for help?" "Know that the kidnapped is the governor's daughter." Will was the first to make his point. The Royal Navy? If they didn't know that the Black Pearl would go there, it would take some time to mobilize. In this case, it may be too late in the end. For us, the fastest way is to hope that we the magic wizard can have a useful boat in his hand. "I'm a wizard, not a captain. How could there be a ship?" Ryan looked at his eyes with two pairs of expectant A's, remembering his steamboat, and thought it was not suitable for getting here. Not to mention that it looks strange. At least Ryan doesn't think the three of them can drive a steamboat. "Aren't you a wizard? Shouldn't the beat turned into a boat with a wand?" Jack asked. "I'm a wizard, not a god. Besides, my boat won't be able to drive alone." Looking at the disappointed eyes in front of him, he suddenly thought of something. "Wait, I remember. I really have the ship. Three of us can drive away." After that, he ran back to the seaside open space they had bought before with two people. After reaching the beach, Ryan opened the space door at sea. A beautiful brigantine appeared on the sea. Captain Jack next to him exclaimed, "There are only 23 guns on one side door. This firepower is really strong, and I guess this guy must be running fast. Look at its mast and sail." "Okay, let's get on the boat. Our tracking operation should start," Ryan shouted on the side of the ship. "Yes, the question now is how do we find each other?" "I think they must have gone to the island where the Aztec coins were hidden before. And I just knew where the small island was. But really, even if the three of us can drive this ship, but if we want to fight, if the three of us are definitely not enough, I personally suggest that we go together first." Captain Jack, who had just emerged from the deck, suddenly stopped his words, because he saw a magical ship. The deck of the cabin is covered with a carpet of green plants. Numerous rattan sticks protrude from the carpet to control the sails and rudders. At the same time, the artillery on the ship was neither a copper artillery nor an iron artillery, but a strange coconut-like thing with elongated coconuts opening on one side, using round leaves as wheels. "Welcome to the Jackdaw," Ryan said proudly. This ship was built as a royal cruise ship in the world of Song of Ice and Fire, but Ryan almost never used it. Has been a member of the Ironman Fort Guard fleet. When Ryan just needed it, he called the ship directly through the shrine of the rose crystal above. "Is this the wizard's ship?" Will, who followed up, also exclaimed. "No, it's just my boat." Lane thought of Deemstrong's boat at this time. "Because I have a very helpful helper, Xioking. Say hello to everyone." As soon as the words fell, the green plant raised a green snake head and nodded to Captain Jack. "Ah, hello." Captain Jack waved his fingers to say hello to Xioking. "Since there is this, Xioking, I don't think we need to waste time to recruit people on Tortuga Island. We can go directly to the Black Pearl. This way we can save a lot of time and even arrive early at Treasure Island." "What else do we say?" "Let's go." After Ryan said, he directly held the rudder with both hands. Captain Jack felt a little strange when Ryan was extremely skilled in handling the ship. After all, Ryan was a wizard and not a captain. "Because I learned how to drive a boat with a great captain." In the face of Captain Jack's question, Ryan said directly, "It seems that a few years ago it took a little deviation to learn Kenway's boating skills. It's still very useful, especially when using a pet Xioking with the same mind to control the boat, even more flexible than the familiar sailors in the memory. As long as he thought of it, Xioking could immediately adjust the sailor artillery to the ideal state with Rattan." Idle Captain Jack and Will started chatting about the sky, and soon Captain Jack remembered Will's father Lace Turner. At first Will insisted that his father was a law-abiding merchant sailor, but under the persuasion of Captain Jack, he chose to believe that his father was a pirate. Of course Will looks much faster than the original, because now he knows that pirates are not all bad guys, and what he knows from Captain Jack is that his father is a good person in the pirate, and it is because the good man was killed last. "Oh, what's your purpose for helping us?" "I don't believe that there are selfless devoted people in this world," Captain Jack suddenly said to Ryan, who was steering the rudder. "I want the cursed Aztec gold. If I can figure out the mystery of the life and death transition inside, I think I will take a very important step forward on the road of making Our Lady of Roses." Lane seriously replied, "I believe you, because this answer is a sorcerer." Jack Sparrow shrugged, and then ran staggering toward the bow. The magic of life is also the first important magic studied by Ryan. After obtaining some secrets of alchemy in the world read of A Song of Ice and Fire, he went a long way on this road. Whether it is from life to death or from death to life, he has a part of the knowledge. Even the Red God's human resurrection surgery has mastered the mystery. The reason why the Red God can be resurrected is actually because there is no underworld in the Song of Ice and Fire. In this case, as long as the flesh is not completely dead, the power of faith is used to pull the soul away from the flesh back to use the faith. The Force can reactivate the body. So this method will not work in either Middle-earth or the Harry Potter world. But he has never seen the operation of turning an undead into a living person again. This is also the magic and preciousness of the Aztec gold coin. When the Aztec gold coin curses the cursed person himself, it is an undead, in the form of a corpse in the moonlight. After leaving the moonlight, it will regain blood and flesh, and when the curse is lifted, it can become a living again. More importantly, as long as the person who meets the requirements to master the gold coins can change the form multiple times in a short time. www.mplnovel.com, and there will be no sequel. Ryan is ready to study this thing and send it to the world of the Song of Ice and Fire, so that he will have an undead army of 882 people. Moreover, this immortal state can be used by them during wartime, but they are not usually used by them, and even a group of people can be rotated every time. In this way, you don't even have to worry about any psychological shadows. All of this sea journey is guided by Jack's compass. According to Ryan's previous research, this compass integrates the power of divination, mind reading and even part of the wish. However, Ryan did not get the impulse of this compass. On the one hand, the alchemy knowledge contained in this compass is not complicated, but it is very clever. Ryan was confident to go back and do something about it. On the other hand, the compass in Part 5 is the key to a seal. Ryan didn't want to contaminate so much cause and effect in this world. Jack also took a sigh of relief, because not many people knew the purpose of his compass. Not only did the young wizard know, he also had the ability to the compass. But he just looked at it and didn't take it away, indicating that he was indeed not malicious towards himself. At this time Jack had already thought that Ryan was a reliable friend for him. And Will's perception of Ryan is better, because Ryan gave him the opportunity to marry the goddess in his heart. At the same time, he rushed back and forth to save his sweetheart, so he was naturally grateful for Ryan. Just like this, the Jackdaw sailed fast in the Caribbean Sea, getting closer and closer to their destination. Chapter 413, Successful Rescue. Jack felt that traveling on the Jackdaw was his most comfortable sailing experience. With the help of a lot of magical plants on the ship, not only fresh vegetables, meat and water are used as a diet every day, even if there are only 3 people. The fresh water produced on the ship is enough for 3 people to take a freshwater bath every day. In order to be able to run through the so-called Black Pearl, the fastest in the Caribbean, Ryan even started the steam engine on the ship. Fortunately, the keel and ribs of this boat are made of steel, which can withstand the speed. Okay, I admit that my Black Pearl is just the fastest sailing ship in the Caribbean. But seriously, a wizard ship like a wizard like you can't be counted in a normal ship. After determining the speed of the ship, Jack's dead duck was hard said. The biggest problem of sailing on the sea is that there are unexpected winds and clouds. After a few days of sailing, the Jackdaw encountered a big storm near the destination. This should be the storm in the movie. The rain fell intensively, and the wind blew the boat up and down on the sea, like a mouse enclosed in a drum washing machine. At first, Lane thought it didn't matter, but after the mealtime, 3 consecutive bowls of borscht were overturned by the shaking boat. Lane couldn't stand it anymore. He rushed out and looked at a gold medal with cinnabar runes lost, while chanting Shenxi Alpha's mantra about letting the rain stop. When the gold medal turned into a golden light and disappeared into the clouds, the color of the dark clouds in the sky gradually faded with the center of their heads, and the wind gradually became smaller. The natural rain also stopped. After more than an hour, the whole area was bathed in sunlight again. At this time Jack and Will also came out of the stern building, looking at the sky with shock. Is it the wizard's magic? It's simply too powerful, Will muttered to himself, and then he seemed to think of something to Ryan. But the wind is gone. Will we compare to the Black Pearl? Arriving late. You said that this is indeed a problem. Ryan also found this embarrassingly. It was indeed that he was a little too hard just now, so that he neglected their ship to rely on the wind as the power. I think, yes, Ryan said, waving his hand with a ring in the air a few times. Within a few minutes, a breeze gradually rose, and finally turned into a just wind blowing on the sail. Well, it seems that we have a powerful wizard partner, Jack said to Will with his hand. The whole ship drove to the destination quickly under the guidance of Jack's wish compass. Ha, it looks like we're here first. After reaching the scheduled island, Rose Crystal standing on the observation deck shouted with joy. Now there is nothing on the edge of the island. There is no boat. After letting Xiaoking become a vine plant to completely hide the Jackdaw, Lane and their team of 4 lurked into the cave where Barboza used to hide treasures under the leadership of Lane. Sure enough, they found a large pile of gold and silver treasures in this cave. In the middle of this pile of static gold and silver treasures was a quirky stone box filled with gold coins with skull decoration. Okay, here it is, Lane said to several people. I will use magic to make us all lie invisible around here for a while. Wait for my order and you will start. Speaking of this, Ryan looked at Will and said, especially you, absolutely must obey the order and then start. Otherwise, it is difficult for me to guarantee the safety of the rule of man. Looking at Ryan's serious face, Will nodded his lips and eyes. There was perseverance in it. Several people ambushed in the cave for a few minutes, and Barboza walked in with Elizabeth and a bunch of men. The Black Pearl is worthy of being the fastest ship on the Caribbean Sea. Perhaps out of self-confidence, these pirates did not inspect the cave at all. Captain Barboza took Elizabeth directly to start the ceremony. Saw Barboza pull out his knife, Will's heart all touched his throat. But he soon discovered that after raising his knife, Barboza had been struggling to twist his body like a dehydrated fish, but his knife could not survive anyway. Do it, Ryan shouted loudly. Jack and Will immediately covered each unmovable pirate with a Valeria steel large net pocket inlaid with mithril runes according to Ryan's previous arrangements. At this time, the 2 of them only found the shadows under the feet of these undead pirates. They all stood up and tied them firmly. Barboza was focused on by Rose Crystal, and was directly sealed in by an amethyst with a height of 1 person rising from the ground. Naturally, Elizabeth was successfully rescued. Bound all the pirates, Will came to Elizabeth with a blank face. Although traveling with a ship of undead really made her brave, she also began to like adventure. But she is not the pirate emperor who has become very determined after going through the tragedy of family destruction. But it was just a mistress of a wealthy family who had just experienced the danger. In this case, seeing the person you like to bring friends to rush to save yourself regardless of the hardships, of course, chose to plunge into Will's arms and talk to each other. This time Will did not show his might as he did in the original story. He could even say that his entire life-saving process was a little more tiring than traveling, which was completely different from the imagination of showing his might in front of the sweetheart. But the result was good, and the successful rescue of Elizabeth had already satisfied him. Not to mention Xishi in the eyes of the lover, Will's brilliant image of Elizabeth in Elizabeth's heart was also established. I said, what should we do next? Jack Sparrow asked at this time. It's the pile of local indigenous people's gold coins, and we can't kill them unless the curse above is lifted. He asked the group of pirates who were struggling in the net. I can kill them without lifting the curse. You can see if you look at them. Lane pointed to the group of guys who were bound here. After listening to this sentence, Jack Sparrow leaned over curiously, only to find that these pirates struggled desperately not because they were tied up, but because their skin became dark and black after touching the net, and it also brought them great pain. www.mplnovel.com. This is the effect of Valeria Steel. And now it seems that these things are not only great for the undead creatures in the world of Song of Ice and Fire. The effect is that most undead creatures have lethality. Not to mention that Lane used a rune made of mithril against evil above. Can you give me a copy of this thing? I think I might be able to use it in the future. Jack Sparrow said, when I take risks, I will encounter all kinds of weird things. Things that move dead people should be useful. Of course I can give you a copy, but you will have to inform me before you encounter any wonderful things before going on an adventure. You know I came here for those weird things." Ryan nodded and decided to use some magic change the props to one of the best sources in the Caribbean. The next step is to lift the curse. Ryan stopped the two of them at the fancy show over there, and then will cut his finger. When blood was applied to the last gold coin and was thrown back into the stone chest, the curse was lifted. "Okay, let's divide the loot," Lane said and began to divide the loot. In addition to the box containing the gold coins, Ryan divided the remaining gold and silver treasures into 4 equal parts and each person took one. For him, this ordinary jewelry is already a bit unsightly, so he is dividing the spoils. It also seemed very generous. The next step is to recapture the Black Pearl. With the cooperation of Shadow Magic and Xioking, everything is over in less than 10 minutes. It also means that all the goals of this operation have been achieved. Chapter 414, 3 Trident. Treasure is better divided, but a bunch of living people represented by Barboza are not easy to deal with, because they are not bad enough to lose their humanity, so Ryan cannot do anything to kill these captives. In the end, Jack chose a good way, retain some of the more honest and newer and lighter pirates, and after searching a barbarian of Barboza and his buddies, throw them to a few knives and fires, and then throw them exiled on this island. "This thing is for you. I just found it from Barboza, but I can't read anything in it. You want to like it as a wizard." Captain Jack took one after the ship left the island. A leather notebook with a ruby was lost. Wait, isn't this the 5th notebook 20 years later that records the location of the Trident of Poseidon? It turns out that this thing is in Barboza's hands now. Ryan thought about turning the notebook, and it was on the title page Galileo Galilei's signature was found on. "It seems that after this time at Port Royal, I won't be able to return home for a while." Ryan of the Caribbean is not interested in the soul-gathering coffin in Bulaus Spring. The former is similar to the Horcrux, but the effect is not only that of Voldemort's Horcrux. The side effects are even greater. The latter also has no effect on Lane, who has embarked on his own longevity. But the Neptune Trident is different. From the original movie, it can be seen that this is an artifact that can change the rules. Previously, Ryan studied the gods to find a way to master the rules so that he could finally defeat Voldemort. You should know that Voldemort's so-called flying away death is not a false statement. He truly mastered some of the mysteries of death. Because Ryan does not intend to join the pirate camp in this situation, he will leave with Captain Jack and the Black Pearl on the way back. Jack is going to Tortuga Island to recruit some people to fill the crew, while Ryan is driving the Jackdaw to return to the royal port to prepare to establish a trading base in this world. The entry of the Jackdaw attracted many people's attention, especially in the eyes of the public. The poor boy Will actually took the governor's daughter off the boat. After they and his party came to the governor's mansion, Governor Swan was very excited to see her daughter come back, and Commander Norrington was still out on a boat to find Elizabeth. Governor Swan knew before that his daughter and young man Will were in love, but because of his daughter's love, he hoped that she could find a husband who had the right family, and Brigadier General Wellington just met this. With the addition of marriage, Port Royal can get an ally, and he also strengthens the authority of his governor. However, after encountering this incident, Will proved that he was the best choice to marry his daughter for Elizabeth's desperate end. After all, the governor has only this daughter, and no matter how great the power is, it is not as good as the future of the daughter. Since the daughter has found true love, it is better to fulfill them. Not to mention that this Will adventure brought back a lot of gold and silver treasures, and also brought back a powerful wizard as a partner. No matter from the perspective of wealth or power, the benefits obtained by the marriage with the governor of Will not be worse than that of Brigadier General Wellington. This may be an unexpected joy. Out of gratitude to Ryan and consideration of co-opting, Governor Swan sold the 5-fold land around the land that Ryan had previously bought to Ryan at a very cheap price, considering that it was a wasteland. The land price given by the governor is almost the same as that given away in vain. In this case, Ryan summoned a large number of robots to help the construction. It took almost a month to complete the infrastructure construction. At the same time, Will has recruited a group of innocent people according to Ryan's requirements. This group of people began their careers after being trained by Lane with the college's memory installation machine. 1 week after the trial operation, I looked at the trading companies that started to make a lot of money. After instructing Wildo to collect intelligence, Ryan embarked on a journey to find the Trident of the Sea King. After all, Will was getting married recently, and he was temporarily not here as a light bulb. During this time, Ryan used magic to see the words left on the cover of the notebook and the location of the island. Then he successfully calculated the location of the island. He even used the power of the Green Prophet to control the albatross to see the starry sky. The same bright island. Ah! The vast sea, the sea breeze blowing long hair across the cheek really feels great. Rose Crystal sighed with open arms. At this time, I have to take a boat to feel this romance. It's flying fast, but I don't feel anything at all. I very much agree with you. Ryan raised his eyes helplessly. But can you get off my telescope? I'm very tired holding you up. Oh, sorry. Rose Crystal jumped from the binoculars held by Ryan, and then made 2 laps in midair. You just said that holding me is very heavy. Is it because I have eaten too much seafood recently and gain weight? Oh, can't hold. My mouth is our biggest enemy of beauty lovers. Lane kept a smile on her face and didn't know what to say. Why do you say that you are a little puppet and worry about getting fat? But Rose Crystal's idea is not a bad thing, which shows that she has taken a big step forward in perfecting her soul. Relax, even if you turn round, I still think you are my cutest sister. Ryan quipped. I am a fool, brother. This girl is a forever 16-year-old beautiful girl, so she won't be fat. Rose Crystal immediately jumped and retorted like a cat stepped on the tail. This is also the habit of 2 people getting along in private, and fighting each other will make the relationship better. The small island appeared. Xiao King shouted with a hissing voice as Ryan and Rose Crystal fought. Sure enough, a black island appeared in front of his door, but this island is not pure black, and there are some transparent things reflecting the sun. From a distance, the island is shining with little light, just like the stars in the night are the same. Wow, so beautiful. The Rose Crystal flew at once. Probably because of her name, she has always been interested in these transparent and luminous crystals, so she saw the gems on the island and flew over immediately. Ryan smiled, shook his head, and flew out on a broom, and at the same time ordered Xiao King to drive a boat away. Soon Ryan found the missing star position, and then installed the ruby that was originally embedded in the notebook cover in the same way as in the movie www.mythicalnovel.com. In an instant the ruby on his star position was issued in a dazzling red light. The 5 stars on the island were connected by the red light to form the shape of a trident, which awakened the sea trident. At the same time, the entire sea surface and the small islands were violently shaken, and a crack directly through the seafloor burst out. The sea formed 2 high walls of water on either side of the crack. Is this the power of the rule? Ryan was flying on the broom at this time, and Rose Crystal was flying alongside him. There, the puppet's eyes were sharp, and he saw the trident standing on the bottom of the sea. Lean quickly looked at the place where the Rose Crystal fingers were, and a thing with a yellow-green glow like a dry branch was inserted on the bottom of the sea. He could feel a powerful energy coming from this thing. This is a trident. How is it different from the sculpture? Ryan landed on the bottom of the sea and picked up this kind of thing that was like the over-radiated dry branches of the glowing sea in the radiation world. It was a bit too abstract, but the power from his hands let him know that it was not a fake. Okay, what you want most in this adventure is already in hand. Now it's my turn to ask for it, brother. After Ryan put away the trident and returned to the boat, the little doll floated to Ryan and smiled. Say, okay. The next is the time for Cooley. Chapter 415, The Way Forward. It took Ryan 3 days to acquire the Trident of Poseidon, and it took the same time to pick up all the gems that fell from the island. This is also the reason why the waterless space can be easily sorted out after having the trident. Fortunately, these gems are magic gems, so it is not a waste of time to waste 3 days to pick them up. In addition, he did not intend to return to Port Royal before returning to his own world in Ryan's plan, so he took advantage of 3 days at sea to initially grasp the role of the trident. This trident is much less powerful than imagined, and cannot control everything on the ocean at all. After Ryan used the 3-day test, he found that this thing, which is similar to the glowing dry branches, can at most manipulate the sea water. Of course, it seems that the legend of the pirates is not wrong. Being able to achieve this level is no different from controlling the ocean in this era. The biggest gain for Ryan is not to get such a magical prop, but to feel a little bit of regular power from this prop. It was this very small rule that was sealed in the trident that made Ryan recognize what he should do next, and that is to master the power of the rule. For example, because this trident has a rule of the sea, it can achieve a powerful magic effect with minimal consumption. Reasoning from this perspective, Ryan naturally remembered the reason why the top wizards in his world could fight magic to achieve things that ordinary wizards cannot. They should also be in control of certain rules. Take Voldemort as an example. The life spell is a dangerous spell. Even those Death Eaters choose various spells to use in battle, because they can't bear all the damage to themselves by using the life spell. But Voldemort is different. He can use the life spell to curse the audience. As some Ministry of Magic staff recalled, the mysterious man could press several well-trained jurors. At the time, Ryan only thought that this should be the reason for Voldemort's strength, but now that he thinks about it, it is likely that he has mastered some rules about death, so that he can easily use these death-related magic. Of course, if you think of it this way, Dumbledore, who has always been against him, should have mastered certain rules as well. Even Ryan suspected that Dumbledore and Grindelwald might have acquired the Deathly Hallows in order to master the rules beyond life and death. Among them, the power Dumbledore gained due to the family tradition should be biased towards life and change, which can be guessed from the fact that their family will have an undead phoenix as a companion. Grindelwald should have chosen the power that favors death and destruction, so he can master all the fires that destroy everything, and even developed a flame magic that can test the faithfulness. For Ryan, Dumbledore or Voldemort's level is still a bit far from him, but the knowledge he gained in this world has revealed a path to the highest for him, especially because the mystery of this world is gradually hiding and disappearing. The environment makes the rule of the seawater hidden in the Trident become very weak. At the same time, control the seawater is also the lowest group in all laws, similar to the status of the completely marginalized like the spring goddess in the gods. So even at the level of Ryan, he can study this kind of power from the most basic in the world. But Ryan couldn't choose the Trident's useless control of seawater as his rule. Although this path can develop into the ability to control elements at the end, it does not fit the path that Ryan chose. So Ryan can only give up the idea of copying homework and choose a more troublesome way to go out for himself. Because this artifact sealed with laws is connected to this world, Ryan can only study it in this world if he wants to study it. After choosing an uninhabited island and putting away the ship, Lane started his research time. 1 month later, relying on Rose Crystal as a communication tool, with the full help of teacher Luo Zhen, Ryan finally understood through this trident how to master the power of the rules and what kind of power of the rules he should master. Probably because of the grocery store in Wanji, Lane found that the most suitable rule for him was actually a change. This is a very abstract rule, but not weak. Teacher Luo Zhen believes that as an alchemist, such rules are very suitable. The improvement of alchemy is also second only to the rules of creation he masters. After changing clothes, Lane came to teacher Luo Zhen's house through the space door. Luo Zhen stretched out a hand naturally after meeting him, and a rock the size of a thumb appeared in Luo Zhen's palm. Okay, my apprentice, since you came to me, you should have gained something. So show me your abilities, teacher Luo Zhen said with a smile. So, please ask Mr. Luo Zhen to check my progress. Then he tapped his fingers gently, and a group of runes did not enter the stone, and the stone was immediately coated with a layer of gold. At this time, Luo Zhen pulled out a silver knife and scratched the golden stone, and the stone resolved. Luo Zhen saw the golden light shining on a mirror-like section. Very good, you have already started. Luo Zhen nodded. He saw that Ryan just used a little rule to assist the refining, and consumed very little magic power to turn the stone into pyrite. I really hope you can master the rules as soon as I do. It is too lonely to go alone on this road. If there are several people who can confirm each other, each person can progress faster than one person. So my disciple, come on. With the teacher's wishes, Ryan ended his trip and returned to Hogwarts. Of course, he returned to the world of Pirates of the Caribbean before taking the trident back to Port Royal. Then he mixed the trident with a pile of cement and spread it on the foundation of his house. Will and Elizabeth, when they knew that Ryan was leaving, specially prepared a private banquet to see him off. At the banquet, Ryan learned that when the two of them were going to have a wedding in the second half of the year, he assured them that he would attend the wedding and bring them a wedding gift. Finally, Ryan opened the blue space store in the slightly surprised eyes of the two and left. The moment he entered the Wanji grocery store, Ryan received what he had learned about this adventure. Judging from the offset point is not much gain, only 31 points offset into the account. Fortunately, the Trident of Neptune was accidentally obtained, which made him find the possibility of further strength in the future www.mtlnovel.com and also obtained the gold coins related to the power of death. Maybe I can spy on the specific situation of Voldemort through research. Generally speaking, it is quite fruitful. Dumbledore and Voldemort both mastered the power of the rules. Maybe Grindelwald and Nicole may. Lane lay on his bed and thought. In this way, they can do so many things that look like miracles in the eyes of other wizards. For example, the magic stone made by Nicole May. It is well known that magic stone is a kind of alchemy product, but Lane, the alchemist, clearly knows that most of the alchemy products can be made after mastering the method. The magic stone refining method is actually completely public, and even manuscripts on the magic stone refining can be found in the Mull Library. But there are few alchemists who have been able to make this thing throughout history. In the past, Ryan thought that it might be because some important materials were missing in the refining process of the wizards, or some important knowledge was lost, which made it impossible to refine the alchemy stone. But now it should be that the premise of refining the alchemy stone must require the refiner to master certain rules. I think that it is the only thing that can resist the rules. The reason why the magic stone can produce elixir against the life rules of nature is probably because the refiner has integrated the power of the rules he has mastered. Think of it this way. The water in the Harry Potter world is so deep. Ryan had to repeatedly remind himself to be cautious, and he must not be overwhelmed by his recent improvement. Chapter 416, Black Magic Feather Pen. After the Christmas holiday, the weather has been gloomy, and everyone's mood is similar to the weather because the existence of Umbridge made everyone feel uncomfortable, especially since she began to use the quill filled with black magic to punish students physically. Maybe she feels that she has begun to control the situation in the school, so she can only use violence to block everyone's mouth. For example, after the end of Christmas, Harry was very annoyed, and the progress of occlusion surgery by Professor Snape was very small. At the same time, because of the relationship between his father and Snape, he ate in class. A lot of suffering. So I couldn't control my temper and hurled Umbridge in a class to question her classroom order and teaching content. As a result, the pink toad was confined. When he returned from Umbridge the next night at that time, there were white, freshly healed wounds on his hands. Harry had just returned to the common room, and Ginny asked about the content of the toad confinement. Although Harry didn't want to worry about Ginny, he only said that the confinement content was to write sentences, but careful Ginny still when Harry's brow was slightly tightened when he first took hold of Harry's hand. Something was wrong, and soon she found a scar on the back of Harry's hand. "Is that what you said punish you to write a sentence?" Ginny looked very angry, her red hair like a burning flame. Harry felt vaguely seeing a young version of Mrs. Weasley. That old Mother Yasha. She is not normal. Go and talk to McGonagall about this situation. No, Harry said without thinking. I don't want Umbridge to know that she upsets me. She will feel proud. Not to mention Professor McGonagall can't control Umbridge now. What about Professor Dumbledore? Ginny offered another option. No, I haven't even seen him in school recently, and I think he seems to be avoiding me. I guess it may be related to my bad nightmare. Harry was a little frustrated. Okay, it doesn't matter if you don't want to let the professor know. But your hands don't look like this. After finishing, Ginny pulled Harry up to the corner of the common room. Hermione, Ryan, could you help me see what happened to Harry's hand? Ryan and Hermione raised their heads from a pile of parchment paper, and then saw the traces on Harry's hands. The old woman's confinement in Umbridge is to scratch the back of your hand with a blade? Hermione looked at the trace on Harry's hand in surprise. Do the wizards allow torture of students? No. No. Harry waved his hand. She just asked me to write with a black quill pen. Wounds will appear on my hand when I write, and this quill pen seems to be written with my blood. At least this thing is likely to meet the black magic supplies defined by the wizards, Ryan said while pulling out his wand. Extend your hand, let me take a look. Harry was a little unhappy. He didn't want to show the wounds to his companions, because he felt like he would be weak. But in the end, Ginny pulled her hand out. The light of Elendil. Ryan tapped the wound on Harry's left hand with his wand and read out the spell in Elven language. A lively silver-white light enveloped Harry's left hand. Under the silver light, a faint black mist floated from the back of the hand, and then quickly melted in the silver light. A cleverly crafted piece of black magic props, Ryan said and took out a ceramic box and threw it to Ginny. Give Harry this on his wound, and the wound will heal quickly, and there won't be any sequelae. Well crafted. Where did you see it? Ginny opened the lid and found that the box was filled with green paste like jadeite, and had a good smell, so I slightly provoked it with my little finger. Harry asked on the back of his hand. The wizards have a lot of magic props that leave wounds on each other without touching each other. My father can encounter several pieces every year. No, this is not the same. Found that several of the people present were staring at themselves curiously. Ryan decided to explain. General black magic props will have obvious black magic reactions, and even the wounds made by these props will have the same black magic reaction, but Harry's wound does not have that obvious reaction. After saying Ryan to Harry, is it right? Every time you write a sentence, the wound on the back of the hand will heal quickly, leaving only a little pain, but this pain will slowly accumulate until you end the confinement. This kind of pain has accumulated and it is unbearable. No, I can stand it. Harry focused on an inexplicable point, and Ryan looked at him helplessly. He immediately realized what was said. Yes, this is what I encountered. Then this reaction means that the outer layer of the black magic pen made by Umbridge probably has a magic similar to the healing spell, so it covers the internal black magic power fluctuations. If the average person does not destroy the feather pen, there is no way to check the black magic inside, and as a senior prosecutor at Hogwarts and a senior deputy minister of magic, no one can conduct a destructive inspection of his magic items. Ryan explained in a low voice. Can you find something from the origin of this pen, such as buying illegal black magic products? Hermione thought a little. Nothing should be checked. Ryan shook his head. As far as I know, Umbridge is a very careful person, so she shouldn't drop the handle in this regard. And I think it is very likely that this pen she made it herself. How is it possible? Just her? Harry let out a contemptuous laugh. That old woman who only makes us study has this level. Ryan finally figured out why Harry in the original book was so big that they still held their DA rally as usual when somebody was missing somehow, because in Harry's mind, this one never showed magic level in front of everyone. People are probably the same thing as Lockhart in the second grade, so naturally she did not care about her. Don't look down on Umbridge. It's true that she is able to climb to this position today is inseparable from her imagination, but it's impossible for a person who just skids and beats the horse to reach today's position from the lowest staff of the ministry. Ryan saw Harry with a look of disbelief in their face. www.mtlnovel.com and burst into shock. According to the information I have collected before, Umbridge can transform into a cat-like physical guardian. Merlin. It's unbelievable. Harry opened their eyes in surprise when they heard the last sentence. Especially for Harry, as a wizard who can transform into a physical patron saint, he knows how difficult it is. Why doesn't she show her magic? I have never seen her show her magic. After a few seconds of silence, Ginny asked her inner questions, because the wizards would respect those magical powers anyway. People. If Umbridge shows that his magic level is likely to suffer much less resistance than it is now, because she knew that she entered Hogwarts as a member of the Ministry of Magic, in this case she must take her identity to the extreme. If she uses magic, she will put herself on the front line. Ricky is an extremely selfish person. She fell to Fudge only because Fudge could bring her benefits, so she would not give everything to Fudge. Speaking of this, Ryan used his wand to dissolve the dark magic power remaining on Harry's other hand, and then put away his wand and said to Ginny and Harry, "Okay, the wound on Harry's hand has been healed, but I personally suggest that it is better not to stimulate Umbridge as much as possible, because we have more and more valuable things to do than venting emotions." "What you said makes sense. I will try to control myself as much as possible." Harry turned around and said solemnly as Ginny helped Harry apply the medicine. Chapter 417. The situation deteriorated. "Do you think Harry can control himself?" Hermione approached Ryan and asked Harry as he pulled Ginny to the other side of the common room. "It's very difficult." Lane shrugged. "I believe when Harry just said it sincerely, but now his brain is connected with a mysterious man, so he can't control it very much." "Isn't Snape teaching him occlusion?" "I heard that Snape is a master of occlusion. After learning a few times, should he be able to disconnect him from the mysterious person?" "Hermione, you think things are too simple," Lane said in a somewhat helpless tone. "Not everyone learns as fast as you do. Not to mention that the practice of closing the brain is to attack the learner with a dementor and let the learner try to eject the power that invades his mind. You think thinking about the relationship between Snape and Harry, how could Harry learn to close the brain when Snape has always looked at his privacy?" "It's terrible." Hermione shuddered. "It's terrible to think about the privacy in your mind when you look at your privacy." Became even more terrifying, and Hagrid's face. When he went to dinner in the auditorium the next day, Ryan discovered that Hagrid's face did not get better, and even had a new wound on his nose. This is not normal, even if the potion works slowly on the half-giant, but it should be better in terms of the healing power of the half-giant. "Good morning, Hagrid." Hermione waved and greeted Hagrid. "Your face looks more severely hurt. Wouldn't you raise any dangerous things in the Forbidden Forest again?" Minutte's voice was lowered, and Hagrid could not hear it until he lowered his head. "No, of course not, but I accidentally slipped to fall." Hagrid pretended to be cheerful and waved his hand, almost hitting the frightened Professor Victor. "You know I'm busy lately, not only to prepare lessons, some little guys are also messing me up. For example, the fire lizards prepared for the lower grades got skin diseases, and their scales are rotten. And recently I was kept in the inspection and it made me a little uneasy, so something unexpected happened, such as my face. Retain for inspection? Umbridge seems to be trying to replace all professors with those from the Ministry of Magic, so she can't wait to get rid of those who can't see her," Ryan said with some indignation. "So you have prepared the magical animals according to the content of the exam recently. Don't be caught by Umbridge anymore, especially if the guy is a disgusting racist." "Well, I will try my best, but I really forget it," he sighed. "These things are useless to say to you children. I can only add trouble. I should not tell you these things." After talking about Hagrid, he started the conversation. "Now I should put some chili powder on the fire lizards, or their tails will fall off." "Goodbye, Ryan." Hermione. After talking, Hagrid walked away heavily, watching his huge and lonely figure out of the front door, down the steps, and walked into the damp ground. Lane saw a feeling of sorrow. "I think he might be hiding us." Hermione walked over to Ryan and said, "Especially in the area of raising animals. His previous conviction is really unbelievable, especially his face." At a glance, he knew what was hit. In his identity as a semi-giant, he can be beaten into such a thing. "Not much. I'll take the time to ask Wolf. The only big animal that can be hidden in this neighborhood is the Forbidden Forest. Wolf and the horses stay in the Forbidden Forest all day. If they are big animals, they should know." Ryan reassured. It seems that Hagrid should have brought his younger brother over, which is not a happy thing. Given that Umbridge once again refreshed the lower limit of using black magic items to torture classmates, Ryan decided to fight back again. "It's just that this time it's not rumors, but digging into one's privacy. The things Umbridge always wanted to hide." Soon, he secretly carried the letter to Hogsmeade through the Weasley twin brothers. It is estimated that this article will be published next month. I hope Umbridge can keep this kind of calmness when he is revealed. After the end of Christmas, Umbridge's madness has raised another level. Maybe she feels that the progress has not been great in the past few months, so she is determined to want to further control Hogwarts life in her palm. Dismissing a person in this situation is the best way to show her strength, and recently she has only chosen between Trelawney and Hagrid. Now each divination lesson and the protection of magical creatures are conducted in front of Umbridge and her writing board, which makes the two professors seem to be a bit collapsed. Among them, Trelawney was in a worse situation. Ryan had seen her walking in the corridor with a frightened face on several occasions, and she looked back in horror from time to time. Even as a professor, Trelawney is not very competent. Umbridge is really too much to force a normal person out of mental problems. Not to mention that Trelawney, despite her average teaching level, likes to speak some unflattering languages. But she has never had a bad heart and hurt others. To say that a professor needs to be expelled from this castle, Ryan feels that Umbridge is actually the one who needs to be expelled the most. Unfortunately, Umbridge, who now holds the power, will not expel himself. At the same time, it may be because Voldemort has discovered the connection with Harry and that Harry has made no progress in closing the brain. Almost every night, he dreamed that he was walking in the hallway towards the Division of Mystery Affairs, and finally stood eagerly in front of the black door. After listening to Ginny's account of Harry's situation, Hermione thought it was not a good thing. Ryan told Ginny directly that Snape's brutal teaching method was actually destroying Harry's soul defense. This kind of soul defense is possessed by every intelligent creature, but a few dementias per day will destroy Harry's already weaker defense than normal people. Let his condition slip in a worse direction. I think Harry is still looking for Dumbledore to tell him this, otherwise the final result in this way is likely to be undesirable for each of us. Ryan concluded. I said, but Harry refused to go. I really have no good way. Speaking of this, Ginny was about to cry when she was worried. As a friend of Ginny, Hermione persuaded her to make his mood better for a long time. www.mplnovel.com. What do you mean by Harry's dream? After watching Ginny go away, Hermione asked. Although I dismissed Trelawney's dream interpretation, I also knew that a very specific dream was repeated repeatedly. This is absolutely representative of what is behind. Voldemort really remembered the content of Trelawney's prophecy. As soon as Ryan heard it, he guessed what the black door of the Department of Mystery in Harry's dream represented, which also showed that some things had not changed. He felt that he could just take advantage of this opportunity to make some arrangements. After all, according to the butterfly effect, the chances of accurately identifying Voldemort's actions in the future will be less and less. Had to kill at least a few Death Eaters, and Ryan made up his mind. What are you thinking? Just as Ryan began to figure out what he should do in that potentially explosive battle, he felt someone shaking himself. He turned to God before he saw Hermione looking at him with concern. Why are you distracted? Is it because you are too busy and tired lately to feel unwell? She said to Ryan in a concerned tone. Oh, no. Lane smiled at Hermione. Just thinking about what you just said, I think Harry's dream is probably that the mysterious person wanted something hidden behind the black door. What would it be? Spells, magic props, or... Hermione began to guess. The Phoenix Society knows this, so they send people there to watch. We don't need to worry about it here, Ryan concluded. Chapter 418, Valentine's Day in Hogsmeade. Under the effect of amazing workload and Umbridge disruption, January passed quickly. Unconsciously, February has arrived, bringing warmer and humid weather, as well as the second Hogsmeade trip this academic year. This time Hogsmeade Day happens to be Valentine's Day. Seriously? Even a straight man knows that he can't be perfunctory when he spends his first Valentine's Day with his girlfriend. Not to mention that under Umbridge's high-voltage control, everyone needs to find a good reason to relax. So, while taking a rest in the evening, Ryan started to go to various worlds to ask what to do on Valentine's Day. The first Valentine's Day date. We went to the playground first, then we went to the Bunker Hill to visit and took a picture. Knight and Nora recalled that at the same time, the two men clenched their fingers together. A happy smile appeared on their faces. After a brutal World War III and a long 200 years, this pair of lovers are very satisfied with being able to stay with their other half. Sounds good while shopping, but there are no good spots around Hogsmeade. They can't go even if there are really good spots. It seems this will not work. Ryan then asked his assistant Princeton because he was in a relationship recently. Fine vegetable and fruit baskets, plus the pure natural beef and mutton you exported from other places. My girlfriend told me that this is the best gift she has ever received in her life. And I had a great day. Princeton's face. There was an expression on your face. The concept of Valentine's Day also disappeared after the war, so Ryan asked Xiaohai about how to surprise her lover, but the answer he gave could be said to be worthless to Ryan. This answer is too strong in the style of Wasteland. It seems that it is necessary to ask another world to ask, because the three views of a world rebuilt after the end in the Wasteland are not the same as the normal world. Ryan thought about going to the world of Rose Maiden again. On this, as your teacher, the only thing I need to tell you is not to learn from me. Teacher Luo Zhen sighed. Sometimes companionship is the most important thing. I owe too much to my wife and daughter. The longevity of a lonely person may not be a happiness, but a curse. It may be said that this is inappropriate, but I want to tell you that many things are more important than eternal life and strength. You must not be because of strength. And lost. Looked at Luo Zhen, who sat there and lowered his head with a tear at the corner of his eyes. Ryan felt a little blocked in his heart. He also had some understanding of why Luo Zhen would eventually become that way. After saying goodbye to teacher Luo Zhen, Ryan took a deep breath and went to the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Unfortunately, the answer obtained in this world is even worse. Many of the marriages of former slaves are so-called master assignments. Just as people dominate animal breeding, the marriage of the nobles was not much better. It was made by the elders for the benefit of the family. The only good news I heard here was that the wizards and priests under Lane had found the origin of those curses on the land of Mataris, some kind of chaotic magical radiation. And new varieties of plants are slowly purifying the terrible magic radiation on this land. In a few years, this land will be suitable for human habitation again. Finally, Ryan came to the middle of the world of the Lord of the Rings and happened to meet Legolas Toria, who came back from outside. How to make lovers happy. Wouldn't it be enough to have time together? Legolas and Toria looked at each other with loving eyes. As for gifts, as long as you have a leaf, a small grass is enough. This kind of elf's love style Ryan feels he still can't learn, but has some inspiration for him. He felt he already knew what to do. A few days before the holiday, Ryan borrowed the double-sided mirror from Harry and prepared to use the technique above to do something interesting. Valentine's Day morning, Ryan took a bath in the morning, and then came to the hall. Hermione was already waiting for him here. Her dress was not much different than usual, but when she approached, Ryan found that Hermione seemed to spray a little perfume on her body. "Good morning, Ryan." Hermione said hello after seeing Ryan. From this greeting, Ryan found that not only was she nervous when facing the date, but Hermione was also nervous. "Good morning, let's go." Then Ryan and Hermione passed Filch's inspection and left the school. When they passed by Quidditch Stadium, they saw Ron and Ginny flying over the stadium. "I really hope Ron will perform better. I heard Angelina crying in the cubicle in the bathroom yesterday. The newcomers put too much pressure on her." As Hermione said, Ryan saw Ron and missed a very simple ball. "Oh, what happened to you recently?" Hermione asked seriously after disappointingly looking away from the Gryffindor team he was training. "I think you've been making some strange mistakes recently in Transfiguration class, which has never been the case before." "That's because I'm working on something recently, something that a great wizard like Dumbledore once studied." Looking at the concern on Hermione's face, Ryan explained briefly. "As long as nothing happened." Hermione nodded gently. She is not the kind of person who likes to ask the bottom of the question. The previous question was just out of concern. After getting an explanation, she quickly led the topic to the Academic and Reading Society. The tropic of the O.W.Ls exam content accompanied them all the way out of the school. Ryan felt that it was a bit strange to discuss these when dating, but watching Hermione became more and more excited, he could not change the topic. After all, is it enough to have two people happy together? When entering Hogsmeade, they found that the street was full of students, strolling down the street, looking at the shop windows, and getting together to play together. It seems that the feeling of repression in the last month or more should be vented out. "Let's go to the Owl Post office first. Hermes has been running long distances for both of us recently. I feel it is a little thinner, so I want to buy it some good owl food." Since the parents of the two went to Tankow in the future, every email will require the owl to be sent in thousands of miles. Fortunately, Hermione's owl is an eagle owl, which itself is good at flying long distances, so it can successfully complete these tasks. "I think that's because since the last time I came back from Brazil www.mtlnovel.com it has only been a short run to make a lack of exercise and become fat." Ryan checked with Natural Magic before, and he found that since resuming the long flight the fat chicken is much healthier than before. Of course, it is not wrong to add a little nutrition if you fly long distance. Seeing Hermione's eyes, Ryan immediately turned the style of the painting. "Let's go to the post office to buy owl food now." Somewhat strange, when Sirius ran out, there were Dementors everywhere. But this time, 10 Death Eaters. No, now 7 Death Eaters are at large. But there is no Dementor nearby. "Look at the entrance of a shop. A yellowish wanted order was posted," Hermione said thoughtfully. On the one hand, Fudge wanted to pretend that everything was peaceful and deliberately downplayed it. On the other hand, I assumed that the Ministry of Magic had lost control of the pile of Dementors in Azkaban. Ryan shrugged. "Since this is the case, I think we should teach you some spells in this respect at the next reading meeting," Hermione said thoughtfully. When the two came out of the Duke of Honey's store, it rained. The cold rain hit the body and face makes people feel uncomfortable. Do you want a cup of coffee?" Ryan asked tentatively. "Yes, just go to the Patafoo tea house. I heard a few school sisters say it was very good." Hermione hesitated and offered her suggestions. Soon they turned to the side road and walked into a small tea house they had never noticed before. Chapter 419, Encounter Lupin. The famous Patafoo tea house has a small space, and the fire in the room is very hot. So after pushing the door open, Ryan found that there was some mist here. At the same time, the whole tea house is in a cute style. As far as the eye can see, all things are decorated with frills or bows. And because today is Valentine's Day, there are special Valentine's Day decorations in the tea house. Golden cherubs are flying above each small round table, and pink confetti is scattered to the people below from time to time. The style here, seems to be a bit different from what I thought. Hermione looked a little confused. Indeed, this place may not be suitable for her style. I wanted to come to those school sisters who only recommended a place for Hermione to go to Valentine's Day, but did not consider her hobbies. Then let's go to Three Brooms. Ryan suggested that after all, dating is best to go to a place where everyone can relax. So before Mrs. Pative, who was obese and dressed in a shiny black hair bun, squeezed out of the two tables, they quickly opened the door and exited the tea house. At the door, the rain was already heavy. The two of them rushed out with their robes on their heads and quickly rushed to the door of the Three Brooms. After asking for 2 hot buttered beers, Ryan took the glass and made a round table by the corner. It feels much better. Just that store really made me a little bit uncomfortable, Hermione said with satisfaction after drinking a large sip of warm butter beer, and suddenly she turned her head to look at the door. Why are they here? Who? Ryan turned to look at the door. As a result, a young witch with pink bubble-like hair pulled another middle-aged witch into the room. Professor Lupin, Tunks, here. Lane and Hermione greeted at the same time. Lupin, who had just entered the door, came over when they saw Lane. After they approached, Lane discovered that Tunks took Lupin's hand actively. It seems that their feelings started earlier than expected. Nice to meet you. Tunks waved enthusiastically. As a rare young woman in the Phoenix Society during the summer vacation, she had a good relationship with Ginny and Hermione. Why are the two of you here, not sitting at Madame Patif tea house? I just went, but the atmosphere there is not suitable for both of us. Ryan shrugged his shoulders with a helpless expression. It's the same as I was in those days. The atmosphere there made me feel embarrassed. Tunks laughed. Lupin, what are you doing recently? Just as Hermione and Tunks got together and talked about some girls, Ryan asked Lupin quietly. I was contacting some werewolves recently, Lupin whispered after looking around and no one noticed. Thank you and the Weasley twins for helping me. Some of the milder werewolves I met found a good job in your shop. They are now working and producing on the farm you bought in northern Norway a while ago. Some of the raw materials you need. That place is really good, far away from the crowd. We don't have to worry about harming innocent people. And it can also provide us with a very good opportunity to make a living. This is what I should do, Lane said. I think the most important way to prevent the werewolves from falling to the mysterious side is to provide them with a normal job so that they can support themselves. Otherwise, the hungry and cold werewolves will inevitably follow the mysterious people who can let them live normally. Not to mention that the laws of the magic world against werewolves are hardly just. You are right. Lupin nodded sympathetically. Seriously, not all werewolves are evil. It can even be said that most of the werewolves are like ordinary people. They just hope to live a calm and ordinary life. Unfortunately, the anti-Widgeon Umbridge drafted 2 years ago. Laws forced them to take risks. Understandable, after all, to survive. Ryan nodded a little solemnly. So I would rather reduce profits and build that farm in northern Norway. As long as there are more employees on the farm, there will be one less terrorist who will invest in the mysterious man. This topic lowered the atmosphere between the two. But soon Lupin thought of a more exciting news. Did you know that I recently found that the werewolf work was easier than it was in the last war? Why is this? Ryan asked curiously. Because obviously Voldemort could get more chips, and most of the werewolves were darker because of the long-term discrimination. In this case, how could it be easier to draw together? You know the mysterious disappearance of the giant a while ago. Watching Ryan nodded his head to know that Lupin went on. This incident, plus when you were kidnapped before, the case of the Zepesh family's door breaking at the Zepesh castle had a great impact on the dark creatures. Speaking of this, Lupin looked again and again alertly, and then continued. Now whether it is a werewolf or a vampire, Dumbledore has changed his style in these decades. They have been rumored that Dumbledore will not be as kind as in the last war, but will wash away all the downsides. Dark creatures on Voldemort's side. So in this case, not many dark creatures are willing to risk huge lives and definitely fall back to Voldemort. Seriously, I would be scared if I didn't know Dumbledore's character. The last time the European magic world killed dozens of people in one breath has been a matter of hundreds of years ago. Not to mention an ancient the vampire clan directly destroyed the door and eliminated almost all European giants. Now Dumbledore has become a more terrible person in the mouth of those dark creatures than Voldemort. How do they know it was Dumbledore? Ryan knew that it was for his own sake, but for safety reasons he still asked the group of dark creatures why Dumbledore did it. First, the killed vampires and giants clearly offended Dumbledore. For example, the group of vampires kidnapped Hogwarts students and cooperated with Voldemort. And the giants were also driving away Dumbledore. The messenger later chose to reverse Voldemort. Second, www.mtlnovel.com. This world has the strength to accomplish this kind of thing in a very short time, and only Dumbledore is the one. Lupin it also looks a little confused. But the question is really not what Dumbledore did. At least when the vampire was wiped out, the principal Dumbledore was still looking for someone at Hogwarts. But anyway, at least this situation is good for us now. Ryan interrupted Lupin. No matter who did it, we still try to treat each other as friendly. Because when we face the mysterious person, we have at a disadvantage. It is really impossible to afford the risk of establishing another enemy. You are right. Lupin drank the butterbeer in front of him. I think too much. Not all things are better. Oh, what's the matter with Tunks? Lane asked with a smile. Isn't I usually researching new products in the house behind your shop now? Tunks often visits me, and sometimes I will have afternoon tea with me, and then we will be cooked. Lupin said some here. Sorry, it's just familiar. Ryan asked with a smile. You know that I am a werewolf, and some things are not something I should have extravagantly obtained. Lupin smiled bitterly. She should marry a young and handsomer, not my old werewolf. Just as Lupin complained, he suddenly heard Ryan say this sentence. I said, Professor Lupin, would you like me to do an experiment? I recently wanted to study the question about werewolves. Chapter 420. Gift. What? Lupin answered so loudly that both Hermione and Tunks turned around and looked at him. We discussed some things related to alchemy, and Professor Lupin was excited after listening to my recent progress in alchemy. Ryan calmed the two women and turned to Lupin. I just said I try it, without saying it will definitely succeed. It's okay, I believe you. Lupin took a deep breath and said, we always think you are likely to be the next alchemist like Nicole May. If someone I know can solve my body, if it has a problem, it's only you. What? Are you so optimistic about me? This is really a bit dare not be. Ryan scratched his head embarrassedly. But recently I did figure out a very important knowledge point. Maybe it can really alleviate your problems. But what I need to explain is that I dare not guarantee 100% to be able to research the results in this area. You may need faced with the possibility of waiting for a long time and still happily having a game. It's okay, so many years have passed, I can wait. Lupin smiled from the heart. You have to know what wizards are willing to do for us werewolves for so many years. Because most wizards are not willing to do research for us werewolves with little money. Ryan expressed his understanding that the problem of research on werewolf drugs is a bit like the research on certain drugs for rare diseases in his own life. Because the number of patients is too small, the development of drugs may not be able to recover costs, so those with scientific research capabilities are likely to give up researching drugs in this area for profit. Oh, how should I cooperate with you? Lupin asked seriously after venting his emotions. You give me a bottle of your blood first, and then I will observe you next full moon. Ryan raised his head and thought back. That's all? I remember when Damocles Belby invented the wolf poison potion, but collected a lot of information about werewolves, and even asked 7 or 8 werewolves to cooperate with his experiments for a long time. You don't have to worry about the impact in this regard. In my life, I will do my best to cooperate with you. Lupin said in disbelief. It's okay. It's because of Damocles Belby's observation materials. I just need to read those papers for many things. There is no need to rewatch for a long time. Ryan explained that it may be because the wolf poison is really no money could be made from the werewolf, so Damocles Belby directly disclosed all his research notes and methods of cooking the wolf poison after he invented the wolf poison. This is a very clever method. After Damocles found that he could not get enough economic benefits from this invention, he simply gave up all the economic benefits in exchange for fame. This was a success, and Damocles Belby was awarded the Merlin Medal, and he also became a potion master with a reputation similar to that of Professor Snape. After things were finalized, Lupin took a chance to go to the bathroom and took a glass bottle of blood to Ryan. Afterwards, Tunks pulled away on the pretext of shopping. Professor Lupin is a good person, but he didn't know that he was actually hurting Tunks. Hermione whispered as she looked at Lupin's back. He was just worried that Tunks was impulsive, knowing that his situation would cause more trouble than others in the future. Lupin did not want to bring these troubles to others, nor did he want to harm himself. It took the young girl a lifetime. Ryan sighed. He remembered the couple's ending in the original text, which was really uncomfortable. Yeah, love is taboo blindly and for a while. But it is clear that Tunks is not like that. She has already thought about all the difficulties she may encounter later. At this time, Lupin's blind refusal obviously only hurts. Hermione said, Tunks just told me to give Lupin more time. She can understand Lupin's ideas, and believes that Lupin will change her mind with her efforts. Both people are good people. It's fate that made them a joke, Ryan concluded, and then said to Hermione, recently I plan to study about the treatment of werewolves, hoping to help Lupin. It's certainly a good thing to help Professor Lupin, but it won't delay your OWL's exam. Actually, I don't think it's necessary to be so nervous even if you can do it after you graduate from school. Hermione listened to Ryan said after concern. Relax, Ryan said as he took Hermione's hand over his palm and comforted him. I have prepared everything for the OWL's exam, and as I told you when I came, I am working on some things that great wizards have studied, and helping Lupin just benefits me here. Research. Lean is true, he is now studying the rules of the direction of change. The best way to study the process of reversing the transformation of humans into werewolves is to contact this rule. Not to mention that the research in this area is rich in data, he can save a lot of boring accumulation process. Well, let's talk about these things later. Ryan pulled back suddenly, and he felt it was too stupid to talk about this topic at this time. I prepared a gift for you, Lean said as she let go of Hermione's hand and pulled out a pink box from the waist pocket. See if you like it. This is something I spend a lot of time doing. I think of it. Hermione patted her forehead annoyedly, and then pulled out a rectangular box wrapped in pink paper from her pocket. Ryan opened the package and found the notebook inside. After opening it, he wrote dense letters in Juanxiu's font. Ryan took a closer look and found that this is a book about making potions, which records the methods of brewing remedies like compound decoctions and spirits. But there are many improvements in the notebook method compared to the standard method. I turned it out at Sirius's house, but it was covered with mildew on it. I cleaned my notebook and transcribed it again. You reading www.uukanzu.com hopes it will be useful to you, he minutes said while tearing down Ryan's package. Thank you for your stuff. This is very useful to me. Lane looked at Hermione and said, you just like it. What is this? Hermione ripped the gift wrapping from Ryan, and then saw an electronic product in the box. Apple phone? Hermione took a black smartphone out of the box in amazement. She knew this thing because the first generation of Apple mobile phones in the world of the human skin in just happened to be released last time. Many of the beasts and animals that she killed had this, but this electronic product is useless at Hogwarts. No no no. Ryan shook his head with a smile. This is just a reference to the shape of that thing. In fact, it is a deeply modified version of the double-sided mirror. In addition to the functions that the double-sided mirror should have, you can also query all textbooks and must-read reference books for grades 1 to 7. I like this gift very much, Hermione said happily after trying to find the original text of the book in the key sentence above. If this thing can be sold in your shop, there must be many people buying it. At least not for a short time, because the cost is too high. Ryan said it is true. In order to achieve the effect of future smartphones, the pair of double-sided mirror bodies are made of mysterious silver, and there are many seals inlaid on the top. What a rune gem. Originally made as a test mechanism, Ryan felt that it would take a long time to popularize this thing. After drinking the butterbeer, the rain was much smaller. Lion took the opportunity to return to the castle. Chapter 421, Confrontation. Valentine's Day school dinner is very rich, even if Ryan, who had eaten a lot of snacks in Hogsmeade, also ate a lot during dinner. Unlike the middle school where Ryan was in his previous life, Hogwarts has always maintained a neutral or even slightly encouraged position for the love of senior students. Because the British magic world is so big, most people find the other half in the future. Not to mention that the wizarding world in the UK has always faced the problem of underpopulation, and everyone hopes that students will get married immediately after graduation. Then it is better to have more children. For example, Ginny told Hermione that in the wizarding world, the birth of a third child has a maternity allowance. This explains why so many children of the Weasley family are supported by Mr. Weasley, a junior staff member of the Ministry of Magic. Of course, the amount of this kind of subsidy will not be too much, so the Weasley family can afford a child, but the life is still tight. Because of this habit of the magic world, the banquet on Valentine's Day will naturally be a bit richer than usual. However, unlike other festivals, this festival normally does not celebrate on the bright side. Harry, what's the matter with you? Ryan, who was eating a piece of roast beef, saw Harry sitting a little across from him and asked curiously. Today Ginny and Ron are training, and Sirius is also in trouble. It is too boring to visit Hogsmeade alone, Harry said dejectedly. Not to mention that Hugo was nagging me about a bunch of strange things. I could see that he was unhappy and hiding something, but he seemed determined not to want to help. In short, I am terrible today. You and Hermione today, how about it? Very good, and also chatted with Lupin, Ryan said after swallowing the beef in his mouth. Oh my god, I actually went off with you. It is estimated that I just came out of it when you entered the 3 rooms. Otherwise it would be nice to talk to Lupin. Harry looked a little annoyed. In the common room after the meal, Hermione wrote her homework, while Ryan sat opposite her, deducing a lot of seemingly complex rune formulas on parchment. Even he would pull out a metal plate. What is engraved on it? Hi, good evening. Suddenly the twins came out from behind. It's really complicated, said Rune Fred, who took a look at Ryan's engraving on the silver plate. That's why we can make some magic items at most, but not alchemy products. It is estimated that this boring thing can only be studied by you. Be aware that whether they are Dumbledore or the mysterious people, they have invested a lot in the pursuit of learning, and their strength is derived from this. So there is no harm in studying free time, Ryan said a little bit later. Question: Oh, I see you sitting in the stands of the Quidditch stadium today to watch our college training. How are the newcomers? Ron and Ginny aren't there? Fred dragged a chair, looked around, saw Harry shaking his head, and he said, that's good. Although they are our brothers and sisters, we have to say that after watching the whole training session, we think they will lose their lives. Without us, they will be a pile of waste. Don't say that, George interrupted his brother. Ginny is not bad, and even far exceeded expectations. Seriously, she has already achieved this level of excellence by herself. Ron is not like our brother compared to him. Is it that bad? Hermione raised her head from behind a pile of thick books and asked. Anyway, he is also a brother who was trained with you since he was young. Is it that bad? Let's put it this way, if no one looks at him, he can rush. Fred said dejectedly. Maybe we can only win if he is alone on the court. The twins' predictions are correct. On Saturday, the Gryffindor team still failed under the premise of catching the golden thief. It was not just a problem for the goalkeeper. All the newbies were falling off the chain. It is worth celebrating that the game ended in only 22 minutes, and at the same time Ginny finally recovered a little face to make the score not so ugly. It was Monday, and the latest issue singing the opposition was published, and it swept through the castle as quickly as possible. On the cover is a photo of Umbridge's complacent education order, which is written in cursive. Umbridge's struggle. Dolores Jane Umbridge is the eldest daughter of Alfred Umbridge and Alan Cronell, and the only daughter in the family. This article thoroughly took Umbridge's old man revealed it again. Especially the article describes in detail how she persuaded her father to accept a small allowance to retire early, so as to ensure that he quickly lost news in her world, and how she claimed that your father was an outstanding figure in Wisingama, and made those who inquired about the truth unlucky. In addition to some privately discussed how to use their deserved means to deal with non-magic groups secretly, Ryan noticed that her theory even made many Slytherin students uncomfortable. And the most important of them is clearly pointed out at the end of the article. that when Minister of Magic Fudge thought that Dumbledore might take his place because of the murder, Umbridge used the vanity and panic that incite Fudge. A series of methods let him climb to the highest level of power, and at the same time make him believe that he is one of the few people he can trust. I hope Fudge can bite the dog with Umbridge, or at least let Umbridge be distracted, and don't keep focusing on the school. Ginny said excitedly in the common room. It would be great if things could really develop like this, but I am really worried that this article will stimulate Umbridge and let her do some more extreme things in school. Hermione was not so optimistic, and the fact it quickly proved this. A few days later, while Ryan and Hermione were writing in the library, they heard a loud noise downstairs. At first they didn't care, but then they grew louder. What happened? Hermione raised her head. Why didn't Mrs. Pins, who basically didn't leave the library, also go downstairs? Is there something wrong? Let's go and see, Ryan said as he packed his things and ran downstairs with Hermione. It turned out that Professor Dumbledore announced that as the principal he had the right to let the fired Trelawney continue to live in the castle. www.mplenovel.com. I can't believe it. In this case, the cow actually dared to engage this big move. Hermione frowned. Unsurprisingly, Lane said with his arms around his chest. At this time, Umbridge must show his absolute loyalty to Fudge. Dismissing a Dumbledore professor is the best way to show his position. Now, Umbridge began to question what would happen if there were new divination teachers. Dumbledore said he had found a new professor. Ferenze, looking at the golden hair. The horseman with blue eyes and a tan horse walked in. Ryan and Hermione immediately waved to greet the handsome horseman. Looking at Umbridge, she would never have thought that Professor Dumbledore could find the divination professor so quickly. Looking at the stunned Umbridge, Hermione smiled happily. Yes. This time the Ministry of Magic has done too much. Lane turned and said to Hermione, Mr. Principal just hopes to unite more people when facing the mysterious people, but this does not mean that he wants to make a complete concession. As the first White Wizard Dumbledore of the world, he made a counterattack this time that he hoped that Fudge would be able to stop. Don't let the mysterious people seize the opportunity to break us all because of internal strife. Is this useful? Hermione asked. Professor Dumbledore found it useful. Ryan lowered his arms around his chest and spread it. But I think that Fudge, who has been completely enthralled by rites, may not have comprehended the good intentions of our principals, and will do even worse. Chapter 422, Ferenze. The firing of Professor Trelawney is not entirely a bad thing. For example, now the divination class has become the most popular class among Hogwarts witches. It can only be said that most of the people in this world are face control. Ferenze successfully aroused the interest of the little witches with his pale blonde hair, cornflower sapphire eyes and some melancholic mysterious temperament, or the interest in this handsome horseman. Ryan and Hermione took the time to visit Ferenze, and now Ferenze lived in a decorated place similar to the forest. The floor became soft moss, and there were many trees growing inside. After discovering that it was Ryan and Hermione who knocked on the door, Ferenze showed a happy look. I am very happy to see friends visiting in the castle. Ferenze asked Ryan to sit on a tree stump, and then took out 2 glasses of red juice from the back of the tree and handed them to them. Taste it. A kind of raspberry in the Forbidden Forest has ripened recently, and the juice made is delicious. I didn't expect you to be the professor of divination classes in school this time, Ryan said with a smile after drinking a sip of sweet and sour juice. It's not easy to come out this time. Ferenze flicked his tail. You know that there are many conservatives in the horse people. They think that working for humans is a betrayal. Speaking here, Ferenze looked at Ryan. Thanks to everything you did before, most of my compatriots changed their view of humanity, so I barely got permission to teach you. Of course, this is the biggest. The effect is still your Aunt Betty. Her clear support as a natural priest really helped me a lot. This should be much better than the original one, Ryan thought. In the following time, the 3 people chatted for a while. Ryan and they left, because they still have class in the afternoon. When they sent Ryan to leave, Ferenze looked a little hesitant, and finally he made up his mind to bend down to tell Ryan and Hermione an important news. A giant. Is Hagrid crazy? Hermione said in a low voice, excitedly as she went upstairs to the defamation classroom. Why would he trouble himself like this? Think about Hagrid's lineage. Ryan's words made Hermione immediately guess something. This is really? Hermione's facial expression was tangled. She didn't know how to express her inner thoughts. Finally, only a sigh. Maybe this is destiny. As expected, Hagrid suffered more and more injuries. After all, tame a giant is not an easy task, otherwise Ryan would not choose the extreme means to solve this problem. But now Ryan does not have much time to pay attention to Hagrid and his giant brother, because the 0.W.L's test is closer. Even if Ryan is full of confidence in this regard, he still cannot help being nervous. Of course, this may also be due to environmental reasons. When everyone around you is nervous, you will naturally follow the tension. However, the Weasley joke shop made a lot of money during this time, because Ryan got a lot of herbs from the elves of the Lord of the Rings world and made incense. In the 5th and 7th grade, students facing exams are selling crazy. After all, for everyone under great stress, what can be more soothing than a perfect sleep every day? Naturally, Ryan also left a batch of incense to sell to the members of the book club at a cost price. Because you always have to treat yourself preferentially. I think my black magic defense class this year may be hopeful of getting looking at a silver-white groundhog bouncing around herself. She finally showed a long-lost smile. This year's exam really drove her crazy. If it weren't for the book club, everyone would try to help each other, especially the guidance of a book club member like Ku, who passed the OWL's exam last year with a high score. It is estimated that she should drink sedatives at Madame Pomfrey now. Not only Hannah benefited from the book club, for example, this time Neville privately stated that he must be able to pass all courses. Lane believes he can do it, because in the last potion class he successfully boiled a potion of potion. Although according to Snape's evaluation, Neville's potions can only be used when no one else's potions are available. But it is also a strong encouragement for Neville. For him, even the most complex magic, the medicine, can be done, but what can't be done well. By the way, how about we have another party on Easter? Celia made a suggestion suddenly. I was idle in school then. What do you think? Ryan looked at the others and found out everyone nodded and agreed. Even Neville, who would definitely visit his parents in Street Munga during the holidays, said he would come back early to attend everyone's party. If you know your party, my grandma will definitely drive me out of the house early and let me come over. Like she said, in order to make yourself better, the holiday can naturally be abandoned. Neville said with a shrug. Of course, I also think it's more fun to be with you than staying in an old house alone. My grandma does care about me, but sometimes it's too harsh. Okay, let's see you at Easter. I will post the details in the school's notice, Lane said before the meeting adjourned. This is the benefit of a legal organization. At least it is much more convenient to contact members or arrange venues. Soon, everyone came to the last week before the holiday in the anxious wait for Easter. On the evening of Wednesday, Ryan and Hermione read a long time in the library, until Mrs. Pinks fluttered the feathers to catch up. They just left. Does your alchemy bottle work well? Don't waste my medicine, Hermione asked as she walked on the road. After learning that Ryan studied the werewolf, Hermione volunteered to help him. For example, it took me several days to brew a pair of wolf poison potions, and now the pair of wolf potions is packed in a new crystal bottle made by Lane. It's important to know that a venom medicine is expensive now because the shelf life of this medicine is very short, which means that a high-level pharmacist must be busy with the syphilis medicine several days before the full moon. Come here so once a month. Considering the average income of a high-level potionist, you know why the cost of wolf poison is so expensive. www.mtlnovel.com. And Ryan now comes up with a way to make a container that can keep wolf poison for a long time. It is the only way he can think of to help the werewolves in a short time. It is much simpler than improving potions and even completely curing werewolves. It should be possible. This is a technique for elves to make containers. Since they can keep the light of a lentil for so long, the alchemy bottles made by the same technology cannot be too far away even if they are poor. Lane looked at Hermione with some uncertainty. But seriously, the original wizard technology is too costly. For this technology to make the poor werewolves affordable, I have changed too many things to reduce costs. I hope no mistakes will be made. How much can the cost be reduced to? Hermione cared. Watching Lupin's dress that year, she knew that the werewolves generally did not have much money. 30 gallons, Ryan explained as soon as Hermione's eyes widened. This is not for one person. I made this bottle to put all the medicines of 15 people a year in one breath. It was originally for the wolf people on the farm in Norway. That's it. Hermione nodded. If the average person is 2 gallons, the werewolves should be able to stand up. What's more, as Ryan said, good things must be used by everyone. After these werewolves enjoy the convenience, they may be able to draw more werewolves over. After that, the two of them walked in the direction of the request room, preparing to check the changes in the medicine inside before going to bed. Chapter 423, Raid. The reason why Ryan put the bottle filled with the venom potion in the response room is because even if the rune is cured on the bottle with the rune, but the reason is to avoid multiple runes on the bottle compresses too much space. So the final product is about the size of a thermos. This way, this big guy is not suitable for being around. And as an alchemical product used in this world, whether it is obtained from other worlds or stored in space equipment will affect the final test results. So Ryan paid attention to safety considerations and put it in the place where Slavin Crow was crowned before the request room. Now they are going to the request room to check the effect of the bottle. At this time, because the time was already late, there was no one else in the corridor. Empty. Only Ryan and Hermione walked quietly in the hallway, and the dim light dragged their shadows. But when they reached the stairs on the 7th floor, they suddenly found 2 Slytherin students hiding in the dark. Fortunately, there were not many torches in the hallway. The dim hallway prevented the 2 Slytherin students from discovering the presence of Ryan and Hermione flashing from the corner. Why are those Slytherins running here? Hermione glanced from the corner and glanced back, then retracted and asked. Because this place is close to the Gryffindor Tower, The Slytherins who normally live in the basement will not come here. Just like Gryffindor often does not go to the basement at any time other than potion classes. So now this time it is strange that 2 Slytherin students are sneaking here. Have you seen Harry or Ginny after dinner today? Ryan asked suddenly. No. Hermione shook her head for a moment. Ginny should usually appear in the library, but she didn't appear there today. I seem to know something. Ryan suddenly remembered that in the original book before Harry caused Harry's D.A to be wiped out by a traitor before Easter, it seems that it may be today. Thinking of it, he quickly told Hermione around him as his conjecture. It should be. Hermione suddenly remembered the materials she found when she set up a book club. Damn, since the mysterious man organized the Walsh Knights in the school and used them to try to conquer the entire wizarding world. Now all the wizards have been very sensitive to this illegal organization. Especially Ginny told me Harry they wrote a list of signed Dumbledore's army, so that once Harry was caught, it was likely to be involved with the principal of Dumbledore, so we had to find something to do. I think about it. Ryan groaned after touching her chin and beckoning Hermione to put her ears together. Hermione nodded solemnly, then took out the wand seized from the Death Eaters, and took a small test tube from Ryan. The test tube looks empty, but if you look closely, you will find a red hair inside. We acted separately, and are used to solve the problems in the room where you have a request. You can help me clean up the periphery on the periphery. Ryan finally advised. By the way, start lighter. They are our classmates anyway. After Hermione nodded, the 2 used the phantom body curse to hide themselves and act. Just as Ryan and Hermione began to execute their plans, Harry was hiding in the request room and instructing DA members to practice the patron saint's spell. Everyone practiced very hard, and many people had mastered the calling method of the body patron. Others can also summon a thick and thin silver mist. Just as Harry reminded several classmates to recall and recollect happy things, the door of the room was opened and closed again. Harry turned his head to see who came in, but there seemed to be no one at the door. After a while, he noticed that the people near the door were silent. After, he was surprised to find Dobby standing beside him and pulling his trouser legs. At the same time, he screamed tremblingly, "Harry Potter, sir, Dobby came to report to you," but the house elf was warned and could not tell. At this point, Dobby started to hit the wall. The girl screamed. Harry grabbed Dobby lest it continue to injure himself, and Dobby eased a little harder at this time and said, "Harry Potter." She. Harry understood it at once, then asked in horror, "Umbridge? What happened to her?" Dobby. She discovered this matter, discovered us, discovered DA. Looking at the elf's frowning expression, Harry swallowed and asked the last question. "She's coming soon?" Dobby uttered a cry and began to beat the floor hard with 2 bare feet. "Yes, Harry Potter, yes." At this time, Harry showed the decision-making power peculiar to the critical moment. He immediately shouted to evacuate everyone, and then arranged for Dobby to quickly evacuate to the kitchen. Harry is indeed a good person. It seems that he became the heir of Voldemort not only by relying on Voldemort's opponent specified in the prophecy. At this time, Ryan had invisibly touched the door of the request room. Just through the open the door saw the scene where Harry arranged for Dobby to take refuge. There is a mess outside now, with members of D.A running away, or Umbridge chasing some students from Slytherin. Taking advantage of the confusion, Ryan flashed into the room where he asked. The request room is now turned into a form suitable for practicing black magic defense. Ryan saw at a glance the list of nails on the wall directly opposite the door, and the Dumbledore's army was written in curly letters at the top. Harry, they are really not suitable for this kind of secret activity. Ryan shook his head, and then put the list away. He almost hit Parkinson who rushed in when he went out. Fortunately, Ryan grabbed the lintel with his claws, and then jumped over Parkinson's head. "I hope it will be different this time." Ryan thought of retreating to meet with Hermione in the empty classroom appointed outside the library, and just after opening the door, he saw he who adjusted the clothes after lifting the magic of the faceless person. "Minutes. It's you, Ryan." Hermione raised her wand very cautiously, and put it down after confirming that it was Ryan. www.mplnovel.com. "You just happened to come and help me see what I can't see behind the clothes. I feel as if the thread on my clothes is broken." Ryan stepped forward, and saw that there were several places behind Hermione's clothes. He raised his wand to repair his clothes and asked, "What's going on? Does the group of Slytherins still cause you harm?" "It has nothing to do with the Slytherin group. I thought it might be the cute little girl you did last time. I just wanted to wait until I finished and then change my clothes to fit. I didn't expect this time to be an adult woman." At this point, she unconsciously pulled the clothes on her chest. "This is a priest and Rose Crystal's sister." Ryan explained that since the last embarrassing women's dress, Ryan has collected enough hair from several worlds to avoid repeating similar things. As a result, when Hermione prepared just now, Ryan pulled a random one from the row of test tubes with female hair in a space bag, but did not expect this template to be completely different from the last time. "It's better to make it clear to me next time, so that I can be prepared," Hermione said after Ryan adjusted his clothes. "I knocked out the members of Slytherin who were far from Umbridge, and wanted to come to Harry. Their group can escape a lot." Lay nodded. "I also took Harry's list from them." "Fortunately, Ginny told you about it before." "Seriously, In this case they didn't think of destroying the list in the first place. It was too bad. After packing up, the two returned to the common room. All that remains is to pray for Harry. Chapter 424, Office Confrontation. Just as Ryan and Hermione successfully returned to the common room, Harry was being grabbed by Umbridge and heading toward the principal's office. He was arrested after being attacked by Malfoy with a tripping spell. This time Harry felt extremely annoyed, because he felt it was he who brought those classmates into this dangerous situation. Now he can only silently pray for others to escape. Just when he was worried, they walked to the stone monster. Zizzaby Candy, Umbridge said rhythmically. The stone monster jumped aside, the wall behind split into two halves, and they walked up the moving stone staircase to the bright door, where there was a Sphinx Eagle Beast knocker. But Umbridge didn't bother knocking on the door. She clutched Harry tightly and strode straight into it. Usually only Professor Dumbledore's office is now full of people, except Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall. Fudge also stood in the principal's office with two Aurors, one of which was Kingsley, and the other he did not know. In addition, there was a young actress with a pimple on his face, holding a quill pen and a thick roll of parchment in his hand, obviously ready to record at any time. Harry only knew that this was a Slytherin student who graduated last year. Okay, after seeing Harry pulled in by Umbridge, Fudge stared at him angrily, with a sullen expression on his face. Okay, look at our little hero. Harry gave Fudge an angry look, his heart beating fast, but his mind was surprisingly calm and sober, because he knew that he had to be in the best state at this time to seize the vitality. Then Potter, I think you should know why you are here. Umbridge just wanted to say something, and Fudge had already asked his question. This made Umbridge retreat awkwardly, as if Toad had been watching the fat and juicy fly away. Harry just wanted to say straightforwardly that he knew he was showing contempt for the Ministry of Magic and saw Dumbledore shaking his head slightly. The headmaster shook his head so little that no one else saw it. Only Harry, who had been staring at Dumbledore, discovered it. I don't know. Harry immediately changed his mind and said what he said just now. I don't know. You don't even know why Professor Umbridge brought you to this office? Fudge's tone rose sharply and his face flushed. Don't you realize that you have violated the school rules? Shouldn't you be ashamed of this? But I don't really know what school rules I violated. Harry blinked his eyes, revealing an innocent expression. Since Dumbledore would not allow him to admit it, he must now work hard to deny all the accusations. But he still can't see how he can hope to escape their punishment. Do you mean that there is no illegal student organization in this school? Fudge said, and now his tone is full of anger. Yeah, that's right, Harry said, with an incredible expression on his face, as if he knew nothing and was very surprised. Master, please don't listen to his sophistry. Umbridge interjected at this time. I think if there are witnesses we can quickly figure out what happened. Hearing this, Harry giggled. He remembered that his D.A recruited too many people, and the mobility of personnel was very high. So it's really hard to guarantee that everyone can keep this secret. After Umbridge left, the atmosphere in the office became more and more tense. The door opened when Harry couldn't hold it, and a curly-haired Ravenclaw student was brought in by Umbridge. Harry recognized this person as Myriad of Ravenclaw, who had come to D.A on Padma's recommendation before. You did it right. The minister is very satisfied with you. He will tell your mother that you are a good girl. Umbridge first comforted Marietta and said to Fudge, Minister, Marietta's mother, is Magic. Mrs. Akmer of the Office of Transportation sfellow.com. You know, she is helping us monitor the fire at Hogwarts. Marietta kept her head down after entering the door, because this kind of whistleblowing in Europe and the United States is recognized as a very mean behavior. And when she walked into the principal's office, the sense of shame was even stronger, especially when she was stared at by the principal's gentle eyes. She was even a little ashamed to speak. Some impatiently called Marietta without a response. Umbridge simply put on a disgusting smile and said to Fudge, This is the minister. This evening Miss Ekamo shortly after dinner coming to my office and telling me that if I enter a secret room on the 8th floor, I will find that Harry has established an organization called Dumbledore's Army. It is said that this secret room is sometimes called the Room of the Request. After receiving this information, I notified you at the first moment, and then let her stay in my office for tea, and I took some students who supported my work to the request room to arrest Harry. You are really secretly planning how to fight me. Fudge roared. I didn't expect you really organized an army. Don't you accuse me of this matter just by this, Miss Marietta's testimony? Professor Dumbledore asked, looking at Fudge's face calmly. Such evidence is too thin. You can threaten the student's parents to tell her anything you want her to say. No, it's not just that. We have more evidence, Umbridge said excitedly. Miss Marietta told me there is a list of incriminating evidence. I had asked Parkinson to get it before. In addition, I believe that students who are willing to cooperate with the Ministry of Magic can always catch more participants, and then we will be able to piece together enough truth. Listening to Umbridge's complacent words, Harry felt his heart sink and his stomach seemed to be filled with lead. He only now thought that he had left a fatal weakness, but now that the matter was over, he could only choose to grind his teeth to the end. Soon, Malfoy walked upstairs. www.mtlnovel.com. Umbridge immediately greeted him. Mr. Malfoy. Please show the evidence you just got. Very sorry. Malfoy lowered his head. We didn't find the list in the request room. No? Umbridge's voice sharpened. How could it not be? After repeated questioning, Umbridge can only admit that some things are not the same as imagined. So she asked with hope. Then did you catch anyone else? That, I'm really sorry to disappoint you. Malfoy lowered his head lower, as if to hide his head in the middle of his knee. A lot of students are asleep, and they haven't intercepted those who escaped. Just when Malfoy's mission failed completely, Ryan took a sip of hot cocoa and asked Hermione, who was sitting opposite, how did you manage the group of Slytherins? Don't tell me you interrupted them. Am I so violent in your eyes? Hermione gave Ryan a white look. The last soothing sleep aid fragrance you got from the elves was really good. I concentrated the part you gave me. Later I found that as long as I sniff people, I will sleep directly. So I directed someone to blow the concentrated hypnotic aroma to the places where those people ambush. This also has the advantage that the ingredients in the aroma come from other worlds. Can't check it out. The door opened while was talking, and Ginny ran in from the outside. It should be back after hiding outside for a while. Ryan and Hermione smiled at each other. It seemed they had done successfully before. Chapter 425, Turning Point. While those students who had escaped from the request room were safely returning to the common room of their respective colleges, Umbridge in the principal's office was in a state of madness. All asleep? Is it because of potions or magic? Umbridge asked anxiously, seeing that if she didn't take care of the Malfoy family, she might just grab Malfoy's collar and shake it. No, it really isn't. Malfoy looked a little scared. He had never seen Umbridge treat him like this. Professor Snape has confirmed that they are not poisoned or cursed. They are all healthy and just asleep. So you intend to rely solely on the perjury of a young girl who was coerced by you to accuse me? I think it is not appropriate to rely on this only witness to try to overthrow the Ministry of Magic. Not to mention that the witness's parents are completely under your control. The authenticity of her testimony is also doubtful. At this time, Dumbledore sat behind his desk in a very calm tone, just as he recommended the cockroach heap to others. But Harry heard some relaxation and doubt in Dumbledore's tone. With this Umbridge started incoherently, his chest undulating violently like a toad lying in a puddle. But Harry still organized an illegal extracurricular group. After stopping Umbridge, who was incapable of anger, Fudge said, as far as I know, Potter was in Hogsmeade's Hoghead Bar and many others in October. Meet with each other. Potter meets with these students. Umbridge got up. I want to persuade them to add an illegal group whose goal is to learn some spells and curses. The Ministry of Magic has ruled those spells and curses as not suitable for students. I think you will find yourself wrong at this point, Dolores. Dumbledore whispered, the half-moon glasses drooping on his twisted nose. He was staring at Umbridge from above the glasses. Odd. Be aware that until 2 days after Harry's Hogsmeade party, the Ministry of Magic's decree to ban all student clubs came into effect, so he didn't violate any regulations when he was at the Pig's Head Bar. The Ministry of Magic was stunned, and they found that they seemed to have overlooked an important thing. But Umbridge responded quickly and said, these are good principles, but now we have implemented the Education Order number 24 for almost 6 months. Although the first meeting was not illegal, but since then all future gatherings must be illegal. What about the evidence? We can't just convict a person by guessing, Dumbledore said while looking at her politely and with interest from the crossed fingers, but in Umbridge's eyes this was thick strong sarcasm. Harry heard a rustling sound behind him at this time, and even felt that Kingsley was whispering something. But these movements soon disappeared, just like the illusion he just discovered. Did Miss Ekmo tell us? Umbridge turned to Marietta, who was shrunk to the side, and said, good girl, you did everything right, so don't be ashamed. Now you tell, have we held such meetings regularly in the past 6 months? In Harry's nervous eyes, Marietta shook her head. Harry was keenly aware that Marietta's eyes were strange at this time, as if she was not awake and looked very confused. Umbridge repeatedly asked, but Marietta just shook her head. Finally, when Umbridge was angry, Professor McGonagall finally looked down. She directly interrupted Umbridge angrily. Please don't intimidate the students. I think her meaning is very clear, that is, there have been no secret gatherings in the past 6 months. Is that so, Miss Ekmo? Marietta nodded in Umbridge's eyes that seemed to eat people. Umbridge said angrily, there was a party, Miss Ekmo, you told me, in the room where you can ask. Potter is the head. It is him. Potter organized the party. Potter, why are you? She always shook her head. Girl. Even she grabbed Marietta and pulled her over to face herself, and began to shake her violently. Enough is enough. Fudge saw the anger on the faces of Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall, and hurried forward to Umbridge. Calm down. You shouldn't treat students like this. Umbridge only called back, but after retreating to Fudge's side, her eyes flashed a bit of bitterness when she looked at Fudge's back. But one thing is undeniable, that Harry did organize an illegal rally tonight. Fudge was a veteran politician who saw that there was no way to let Dumbledore step down from conspiracy against the Ministry of Magic. Turning firepower to Harry, he tried to open a breakthrough in the savior launched by Dumbledore, Be aware that the previous 24th Education Order clearly stipulates that if a student is found to form or participate in any organization, association, team or club without the approval of the senior investigator, immediate expulsion. Fudge appeared proud. So we should get rid of Harry and warn others not to violate orders. Harry felt a sigh of relief at this time. Now these troubles are all caused by himself. It would be nice if only one of them was expelled from him and no one was involved. If you want to come, even if you are expelled from Sirius, you will still take your own. You can even try self-study courses in middle school and then try college. No, I don't think so, Dumbledore said. The Education Order says to form or participate in any organization, association, team and club to be expelled immediately. But now the evidence only proves that Harry has gathered a group of people tonight, so this is probably just a gathering of Harry. I think because of this it's not appropriate to expel him. Otherwise, after dinner, a few people meeting together and chatting can be expelled. Fuji's face became pig liver color, and now everyone knows what happened tonight. However, because Umbridge dropped the chain at a critical moment, his plan did not have enough evidence to support it, so he could only watch Dumbledore pressing him step by step. Okay, I think everyone should be too nervous to create too many misunderstandings tonight. Now that it has been explained clearly, then you can do your own thing. There is no need to stay here and waste time. Dumbledore stood up. It seems that he wants to drop off. Fudge was very angry and pointed a trembling finger at Dumbledore, but he remembered that Dumbledore in front of him was one of the most powerful wizards in the world. www.novel.com. So stiffness dared not do anything there. Just when Harry thought everything was going well, there was a knocking sound outside the window. This rumbling sound was so obvious in the quiet office that everyone turned their heads to the window. Outside the window was an owl with a letter. When Umbridge saw the owl, the whole person became upright, with a sick smile on his face. They wrote back, Dumbledore, open the window and let the owl come in. Standing beside the window, McGonagall frowned, but opened the window at Dumbledore's signal and took the letter from the owl's leg. This letter is no different from a normal letter. It is a parchment envelope, but the strange thing is that the envelope is printed with the Hogwarts school badge, but the owl apparently flew a long way to come. This is? Professor McGonagall looked at Professor Dumbledore somewhat puzzled, but Dumbledore ignored her and opened the envelope. After reading the contents of the letter, Dumbledore stared at Fudge at the desk, his blue eyes burning like flames. Connolly, I always thought we were in the same camp, but I didn't expect you to be so obsessed with your official positions, which made you easily lose your due judgment under the instigation of certain ambitions. Watching Dumbledore suddenly angry, Harry felt confused, and he didn't know why a letter made President Dumbledore so angry, and now he was curious about what was written on the letter.